packages apparently.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is crisscrossing the Mideast to get everyone on the same page on Syria. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports Blinken made a brief stop in Iraq today.
Secretary Blinken flew to Iraq to meet the country's prime minister to talk about regional security. Before that, in Turkey, he told reporters there was broad agreement on what an interim government should look like in Syria.
One that is inclusive and non-sectarian. One that protects the rights of minorities and women, one that preserves institutions of the state and delivers services to the people.
Blinken says the U.S. is also focused on efforts to keep ISIS in check in Syria and is urging rebel leaders to secure and destroy any chemical weapons they find. The secretary will continue talks with Arab foreign ministers at a gathering in Jordan on Saturday. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Meanwhile, President Biden will attend a virtual meeting today with leaders from the group of 7 nations. They're expected to discuss the situation in Syria and the rest of the Middle East. The Biden administration is finishing rules that will more strictly regulate climate-warming methane that leaks from gas utilities. NPR's Jeff Brady reports customer meters outside homes or in basements are the largest source of leaks.
The Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, usually called PHMSA, regulates gas utility pipelines all the way up to customer meters. In the past, the agency focused on safety and preventing explosions. Now it must also regulate for climate pollution. Methane is the main ingredient in natural gas and a potent climate warmer. Erin Murphy is with the Environmental Defense Fund.
PHMSA would require operators to conduct more frequent leak surveys, to use more advanced technologies in those surveys, and to fix the leaks that they find more quickly.
Gas utilities say they generally support the rules, which are expected next month. Jeff Brady, NPR News.
The White House says President Biden will consider additional pardons in coming weeks. Yesterday, he commuted the sentences of nearly 1,500 people and pardoned 39 others. Biden says these were people convicted of nonviolent crimes, demonstrated remorse, and have worked to contribute to their communities. One of the people pardoned is Stavoni Doyle from Utah. She's a former drug addict.
I got out of prison in 2006, and then I decided to go back and get my bachelor's of social work and then get my master's of social work. Having that barrier of having conviction on your record, a lot of people think that there is no chance, and they just continually get re-caught up in the system. So having this removed is extremely important.
Meanwhile, Biden is facing criticism for another act of clemency. He pardoned his son Hunter on federal tax and gun convictions. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
And from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. Students who finished high school in Massachusetts but were denied diplomas for failing to pass the MCAS are now being given a second chance. GBH's Tori Bedford has more on the new guidance from the State Department of Education.
Voters struck down the state's standardized test as a graduation requirement in a November ballot referendum, which means the MCAS is no longer the law of the land for current students. And if former students have, quote, satisfactorily completed relevant coursework and gotten through their math, English language arts, and science requirements, the new directive from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education says they should be afforded a process by their districts to earn a diploma. State data shows around 700 students annually who couldn't get a diploma after failing their MCAS tests. A majority of those students had a learning disability or were learning English as a second language. Tori Bedford, GBH News, 89.7.
Police in Lowell say a 2-year-old girl is hospitalized with life-threatening injuries after she was struck by a truck in that city late yesterday. Witnesses say several bystanders, including a nurse, came to the child's aid before EMS arrived. She was rushed to a Boston hospital. They say the truck driver remained on the scene. Police are now piecing together what happened. In sports, the Bruins and the Celtics have tonight off, a very cold Friday the 13th. Sunny highs in the 30s this afternoon. It feels colder. Geminid meteor showers peak tonight with lows in the teens and the single digits. Sunny Saturday and Sunday, highs again in the 30s. Overnight lows in the teens and 20s. Right now it's 39 in Boston. It feels like it's about 18 degrees. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Good morning, Jim.
Hi there,
Christmas
Marjorie.
shopping is all done.
How's it going? Good for you? It's going well?
I'm getting there.
Yeah, I'm
getting
sure
there.
you're
Getting there. Getting there.
So if it wasn't already clear, we are living in the age of the drone. If they're not dropping the tube of toothpaste you ordered from Amazon, being used in those creepy sky displays where thousands of them move in unison. And now, apparently drones are terrorizing good people of New York and New Jersey. That is, if they are in fact drones and not alien spacecraft looking to beam and probe Marjorie. Or that's what she's been looking forward to for years.
Not just me.
Or Chinese weather balloons. The number's 877-301-8970 to call or text. Tell us, what's your relationship with the drone? Maybe you've got one wrapped up under a Christmas tree as we speak for the kids. Would you welcome a delivery of an Amazon drone in your life where they drop off the packages on the porch and then they probably look in your damn windows or something? Why can't they ID the drones in New Jersey? And what do you make? You don't call them UFOs anymore. What's the new initials?
I don't know.
Whatever
Unexplained something or others.
Something. What do you make of what used to be called UFOs returning again?
Unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm sorry I asked. To the news cycle, is there something else going on here? Do you welcome alien overlords, assuming they are alien overlords? And, most importantly, why is the White House saying, which they did, we have nothing to worry about when they have no idea what the drones are or who's driving them?
Here's what they're going through.
By the way, number's 877-301-8970.
Here's what they're going through down there in New Jersey and parts of New York, wherever these things. They're looking up and they're seeing these drones the size of small cars traveling in packs. Running around, they're over Donald Trump's Bedminster golf course. They followed a lifeboat, a Coast Guard lifeboat. I mean, I think it's a little unnerving. People don't know what to make of them. And they, the White House is saying that they might be planes. Well, they have this eyewitness who's been all over TV saying, well, I don't know. You can see red and green, like flashing lights on the corners, and then it suddenly changes direction. This thing stops, turns around. Planes can't do that kind of thing, Jim. They fly off in different directions.
I know what they do.
So what are these drones doing? Isn't it kind of weird that here we are in the United States of America with all our ability, we've got all these cameras everywhere, seeing everything everybody does, that we don't know where these drones are coming from. They just pop up mysteriously for weeks. What?
Why did the White House, John Kirby, who's one of their more impressive spokespeople, I think he's the national security guy, spokesperson.
Yep, I know why.
Why does he say there's no threat if they then say they have no idea what's going on? And by the way, both The Guardian and the White House reported that some of these are manned or womaned or something.
Yep.
Somebody's driving these babies at the same time that Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut says we should shoot them down. What do you think of that?
Well, a couple of other people have said we should shoot them down too. I guess some Congress people. There was a guy in Florida who shot down a Walmart drone.
I saw that.
And things did not go well for him.
$5,000 fine.
Cost him $5,000. Yeah, he said he wasn't happy. Didn't like to have the drone flying around his house. He got out his gun and he took it down.
Do you want Jeff Bezos to deliver, as I said, delivering toothpaste to your house with a drone?
That's the other thing.
I don't.
Do you think is this a vision of our future? I mean, when you have a lot of neighbors, and I get stuff from Amazon too. I'm not trying to be holier than thou,
Well, please.
but some people get like 3 and 4 packages every day. Can you imagine when they have drones, you'll have like dozens of drones flying down your street every day delivering packages?
Don't you think they're looking in your window too? And also, I'm serious. Don't you think they're looking
Well,
in
I
the
think
window?
some people are worried about that. They're looking in their window, or they think that they may be nefarious. That some people think, they always blame China for everything. Some people say they came from China and they're after your data, Jim. I don't know how they're going to get their data from the drone high above you. But that's what, it's just weird that we don't know what these things are. It kind of makes us seem a little impotent in the face of this, what can only be called a drone invasion.
Drone invasion. 877-301-8970. Before we get to the calls, a common friend of ours who has listened to us for 20 of our 25 years on the radio just texted and wanted to know why you always appear so gleeful whenever you talk about the possibility of being beamed and probed.
Oh, please.
No, I'm saying you do all the time.
It's just a joke. Here's why. Because every time in previous years when people have encountered unidentified flying objects.
When she stumbles with her words, you know she's making up a story.
When they say that what happened, it's always the same thing. They were beamed up and probed.
Yeah.
So that's why.
What does that mean exactly?
They do medical exams on people that are beamed up.
That is
what people say.
Fine.
Remember those people up in New Hampshire, the couple? Yeah, a lot of people saw those unidentified spaceships in New Hampshire. They were beamed up and probed.
No, it says who?
And then they were landed back, and they were fine, and that's what they were called. Happened.
Okay, fine.
877-301-8970. I mean, what would you think? Happily, they haven't come to Massachusetts yet, but they could be coming anytime soon, and I don't think I'd like it one bit.
Here's Brendan in Sturbridge texting, I'm totally fine with UAPs and alien overlords as long as they beam me up before January 20th. That'd be inauguration day for those who are unaware.
Okay.
Actually, half the audience wants to be beamed up by January 20th. 877-301-8970. By the way, if you actually know something about this, as opposed to Marjorie and me, we'll pop you up to the top of the list, and maybe we can actually learn something from this discussion here. Let's start with Marilyn in Quincy. Marilyn, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I think we're good. Thank you for asking.
First time caller.
Wow.
A long time listener.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a son who's a former rocket scientist.
Whoa.
Wow.
He has a theory on all.
What is
all
it?
of this.
What is it?
First of all, it's not a foreign entity trying to spy or anything, because it wouldn't have lights on if they were trying to do that.
That's a very good point. Sometimes they do turn the lights off, though, we understand. They kind of fool you, Marilyn. They're on, then they're off.
When they're feeling foreign, they turn them off. Go ahead. Okay, what else does your son, the former rocket scientist, say? Go ahead.
He says someone has a government contract that they're not, the government isn't telling you what they're doing, but this is all a government contract.
But wait a second. I called you Susan. Marilyn, the thing I don't understand is there are leaders in the government, United States senators, Blumenthal from Connecticut, whoever they are, Kim and somebody else from New Jersey, are saying they can't get any information. Why do government leaders not know if they're government sponsored?
Can
you call your son or what? What?
Top secret, Jim. It's top secret. It's classified.
Marilyn, one last question.
That's right.
Well, you made that up.
It's going to show up at Mar-a-Lago any moment
now. If there were drones the size of cars over Quincy, would you be so calm based upon your son's representations? I don't think so.
No.
Exactly.
Well, first of all, he says there are they evidently went through the FAA to get permission to do this. Otherwise, they probably would have been shot down.
Why is your son a former rocket scientist, by the way? Former.
Why is it? Because he left to make more money. He was bored in his job.
Okay. Hey, that was a great first call, Marilyn. Call us again. Tell the kid to call us, too. Your son, the former rocket scientist. We'd love to talk to him. Marilyn from Quincy, thank you.
Bill from Chelmsford has a nefarious idea.
What's
Perhaps the White House isn't concerned because they're operating the drones and planning something for which the president will be immune from prosecution after he's back in office in January 2020. And by the way, in terms of the government kind of thing, apparently some of these packs of drones, and they are often in packs, Jim. They travel in groups. They were hovering near Picatinny Arsenal, a U.S. military research and manufacturing facility. What's the matter?
I'm laughing at something, but finish your thought and I'll read it.
Okay. And then, as I said before, near Donald Trump's golf course in Bedminster. And by the way, drones are legal in New Jersey for recreational and commercial use, but they're subject to local FAA regulations and flight restrictions. And it seems
if they weigh more than 55 pounds.
Yeah.
And if there's a human being in some of these, according to the White House, don't they by definition have to weigh more than 55 pounds?
Well, if they're the size of small cars, I would say they did weigh.
Well, exactly my point.
Pounds.
By the way, I think people are misunderstanding the discussion of drones because Bob in Rehoboth texts, can we just stop Jim from droning on?
That's
not
a good
the
one.
kind of droning we're talking about. Thank you, Bob.
Listen to this from Alan in Concord.
What do you say?
This is what happens when microdosing becomes popular.
You know,
that could be hallucinating. People are hallucinating.
Before we get back to the calls, in a moment of total seriousness, if you looked up and you saw something that looked drone-like, that was the size of a small car, with lights going in all weird angles and directions, would you not be a little freaked out?
I would be a little freaked out. Well, haven't you seen the people on TV that are a little bit freaked out about this? They're trying to maintain their sense of humor and thinking that it's probably nothing. It's probably just maybe some high school kids or something like that.
You know what I would do? What would you do in that circle? If that happened, what would you do? I know what I'd do.
Hovering over my house?
Yeah.
I don't know. Call the cops? What would you do?
What I would do, I would call the legislature and they'd say, as soon as we're back from our 5-month vacation, we're going to get back to you on this. Donna in New Hampshire, you are next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about all these drones, both, the little ones that deliver packages. And by the way, excuse me 1 second, Amazon is already using drones to deliver packages in Texas and Arizona. So a drone is coming to a neighborhood near
many
you.
drones.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. My daughter lives in Morristown County in New Hampshire.
Whoa, yeah.
And and they're pretty terrified, I'll tell you. It's a very scary situation. And I don't think they're getting the answers they deserve, and I don't think it's a joke at all.
I don't either.
Wait a minute. What's happening in New Hampshire? We were talking about
I think you meant New Jersey. Don't you mean Morristown, New Jersey?
Oh, New Jersey, okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, my daughter lives down there, and they're seeing them, and the neighbors, they're all going crazy. They're terrified.
What are they doing about their terror?
They just keep calling. They keep calling their legislature. They keep calling the police. They really want answers on this thing, and I think it's ridiculous that this much time has gone by and they don't know anything.
I am 100% with you and your kid.
So what does your daughter say she sees?
They have seen just like she's like, I don't know if it's a plane or not, but they have seen two in a row go by. And some are low and some are high. It's just scary. She can't sleep. It's terrible.
That's horrible. That is really hard.
Did they make any noise?
Yeah.
Did she hear them? No, they're silent drones.
No. Yeah, she hasn't said anything about noise.
Okay.
Hey, Donna, in a moment, can you do us a favor? Could you call your kid right now and ask her to call us, your daughter?
I can't. She's working. I think she. Yeah. I don't think she could do that.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, Donna,
right.
Thanks for the info. Good luck to your daughter. Hope she's okay. An anonymous texter says Marjorie Taylor Greene is under her desk. Jewish space lasers.
Yeah, remember that? Remember she said the Jewish lasers caused the fires out in California? That was really something. Okay, let's go to Susan in Cambridge. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Susan.
Good morning. So I was completely against drones. Completely.
And?
No use for them. Then we put solar panels on top of our 40-foot high flat roof, and we have no access to them whatsoever. So if something goes wrong, if there's a crack or it's not bent properly or there's a problem with the roof, we have no way to see it. So I purchased a drone for my husband so that we can spy on our own roof.
I love it. So the drone goes up there and hovers over the roof to see if there are any cracks.
That's basically it. That and looking at the solar panels. We've had 1 million solar companies show up. The ones who put it up were too afraid to go back up and check on it. So now we have to go to use the drone.
And a related thing, which I totally forgot about until you called, Susan, a lot of homes that you look at now, if you're interested in buying or renting a house, one of the ways they give you a full image of the house, including from above, is the real estate companies use drones to take photographs. So it's a variation.
There you go. It's second business for us.
Susan, thank you. I guess that's a positive part of the drone world.
Now, many people, Carol is one of them, who's hypothesizing that it's actually Santa Claus scoping everything out, hence the red and green lights reindeer replaced with drones.
Are there red and green lights?
There are red and green lights, according to the witness. You see red and green like flashing lights on the corners. Then the drone will just change direction, like go from 90 degrees to like 270 degrees, flying in different directions. Planes obviously cannot do that.
As we're speaking, United States Congressman from New Jersey, Josh Gottheimer, is saying it's, quote, unacceptable. We're watching CNN. Unacceptable to have so much unexplained drone activity. And I go back to the first caller. I think her name was Marilyn. I'm not sure, whose son was a former rocket scientist because he wasn't making enough money, who says not to fear. It's a government. Isn't she the one that said it's a government kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what she said.
If it's a government thing, why does the congressperson not know, and why is he holding the press conference? Because it's not a government-sponsored kind of thing.
Well, it's not just the congressmen. Senators Kristen Gillibrand, Chuck Schumer, Cory Booker from New Jersey. Is Andy Kim from New Jersey too?
Yeah, just elected.
Yeah, urged government
Asian American
agencies
senator.
to, quote, brief us as soon as possible on how your agencies are working with federal and local law enforcement to identify and address the source of these incursions.
Can I ask you the same question for the fourth time?
Yeah.
Why is the White House saying there's nothing to fear if they have no idea what it is?
They don't want us to panic, Jim.
I know. Okay, fine. Okay.
They don't want us to get upset about
In other words,
the
you have
drone.
no answer to the
or
question.
They don't know themselves and they don't want to.
Well, then why do they say? I understand
I
they
don't
don't know. Why are they saying then don't? It's not a threat.
I have
How do
no
they know
idea.
it's not alien overlords? As I said at the beginning. What is an alien overlord, by the way?
They're people from Mars.
No, you don't
They're
know.
drones from Mars.
You know, you're making light. You'd be the first, most terrified person if they were flying over your damn house.
I would not like to have drones coming over my house. But that's the thing. Are they American
Friendly drones?
American drones? Are they Chinese drones? Are they Martian drones?
No, you're really adding a lot to this discussion. It's been very helpful. Your hypotheses. I think the audience is really learning a lot. We have to take a break, thankfully.
We do have to take a break.
We do, yeah.
We are talking about these packs of drones traveling in packs, as I said, over parts of New Jersey and New York.
Hold it a second. I said Kim was the first Asian. I forgot about Senator Hirono. Is he the first Asian male senator?
Mazie Hirono from Hirono from Hawaii.
Hirono, I forgot it, from Hawaii.
But you know what?
Thank you, Zoe.
There's no drones yet in Hawaii, Jim.
As far as we know.
Be thankful for that.
Thank
We're going to
you.
keep talking about this after a quick break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
For decades, Canada has been home to the largest Sikh community outside the Indian state of Punjab.
So if you asked up until very recently, the average Sikh in Punjab, where would you like to go? They would have answered Canada.
But diplomatic tensions have flared between Canada and India, and the Sikh community is facing new threats. Next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Picture House, presenting Porcelain War, chronicling 3 Ukrainian artists who choose to stay in their native country, armed with their art, their cameras, and for the first time in their lives, their guns. Now playing only in theaters.
And Revision Energy. Sunbug Solar is now part of Revision Energy, a solar installer committed to being a renewable energy partner for New England and working to fight climate change. Learn more at sunbugsolar.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan live from the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Live music at 11:30. Clementina Cherry a little bit later in the show from Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. Ryan Landry from the Gold Dust Orphans. And Monday, we'll be joined by State Senator Nick Collins, who requested an opportunity to respond to what we and Mayor Wu had to say in response to him, a Boston senator, helping to kill the Boston mayor's proposal to play with property taxes, according to her, to benefit residential homeowners. We're talking about drones of all kinds. The drones that are delivered packages to some people's houses, but more importantly, the drones over New Jersey and New York and that sort of thing. Can I read 2 quick texts, which is a really serious...
Are you reading the one from Tori in North Attleboro?
No. Craig in Taunton says
Okay.
Insurance companies use drones to deny homeowners insurance if your roof is in neglect. And Hannah, our coworker, said this: my parents' insurance company in Florida flew over their house after the hurricane before they even returned home and sent them a picture to confirm that there was not damage. So insurance companies are using drones to make sure they can deny certain coverage.
That's right.
To insurance carriers.
Now, you just saw the spokesperson for the Pentagon. She was on CNN saying that they're manned aircraft and they're flying lawfully. So you wonder if if they're manned aircraft, why don't they ask the men in the aircraft
or
to
women
explain what they're doing so that people aren't
nervous?
Wait.
If it's lawful, why don't they tell us what they are? Forget telling them. Why don't they tell us?
That would be good too.
I think so.
But Tori in North Attleboro is wondering at this point, she says, with all the hullabaloo going on, why no one has fessed up to being responsible for these drones. And that's what makes people more intrigued and more worried.
Wow.
So how do they know they're manned aircraft?
How the hell do I know?
Well, if they're manned aircraft, they should get in touch, like I said, with the men or the women to explain themselves, Jim.
Well, don't they have satellites and stuff? And I assume they're taking a look. Or maybe they have their own drones that are surveilling the drones themselves. Sightings go back to state military officials November 13th. White House, no, I'm reading from CNN's report. Whoops, disappeared. No evidence that they're something to fear. I just don't understand. Then tell us what they are.
Yeah, because...
By the way, I was not freaked out at 11 when we started this discussion. Now I am a puddle of goo.
Well, you just think about it. Like the woman that called before, you don't want to see a few drones hovering over your house at night.
Look at it. Look at it.
Nervous.
Well, I shouldn't say look at it when the audience can't see them.
The audience
By the way,
can't
you'd
see
love them if you could see them, but you can't. So trust me, I'll convey the image.
Okay.
Oh, my God. That is incredible.
Peter in Berlin. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Peter.
Good morning. I'm a first-time caller.
Great.
And as an aside, when I go to the gym, I take you with me.
Oh, thank you.
Wasn't for the two of you, I don't think I'd make it to the gym.
You are a fine soul. Thank you, Peter.
That's very nice of you to say, Peter.
And don't forget to send that $50 you promised.
Absolutely.
It's on its way. What's up?
What do you think about the drones?
So I'm a 40-plus year fixed-wing pilot, and I'm mystified by this behavior. I've flown a long time. I'm only 35, so I'm not sure how that works out.
Thank you, exactly.
Anyway, seriously, it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't launch local aircraft, state police, EMS. There's a lot of airplanes and helicopters out there that could not literally intercept them, but intercept the location and have a look. And it's kind of beyond me that you don't hear any of the local legislators and local folks talking about launching state police and other similar.
Peter, if you're a pilot for all these decades, one of the things we haven't mentioned is Marjorie mentioned one of these things. Some of them have flown near Bedminster, where the next president of the United States occasionally hangs out, and some of them have flown over military installations in New Jersey.
Yes.
I'm assuming as a pilot, you can't do that, so why can they do that?
Well, temporary flight restrictions apply to where the president is.
Well, how about a military base? How about a military base?
It's usually restricted airspace, and we can't go through that.
Yeah.
So either they're known to the government, or they've got some kind of arrangement, or it's indeed something the U.S. government doesn't know, and they're blowing smoke up our skirt,
so to speak. What do you do when you go to the gym, Peter, when you're listening to us?
Don't ask.
Okay, thank you. I won't. Peter, thank you for an excellent call. We won't ask.
How about the pack of drones following that U.S. Coast Guard vessel?
I don't know that. What's that story?
Yeah, a dozen drones follow this Coast Guard lifeboat in close pursuit near a place in New Jersey as well, I believe. Yeah.
Can we get much more up close and personal? You haven't responded to me saying, I don't want a drone delivering an Amazon package to my house, hovering over my porch.
Yeah.
Then slowly lowering itself and probably hitting me in the head or something.
Dropping things out of the sky.
Whatever it is. I mean, does that trouble you or doesn't
I don't like
trouble
the
you?
idea of dozens of drones. I mean, when you think about how many Amazon packages are delivered in your neighborhood, and think about that prospect of all these drones driving up and down, flying up and down the street, dropping things off.
You know what it'll be like? It'll be like Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, but the drones instead. You look up, I mean, by the way, aren't they scary? I know a lot of people like them, and someone called us and said they're getting their husband, or they got their husband one for Christmas. It's a big thing. I think for guys more than...
Yeah, a lot of kids have them. But these are not kid-sized drones.
No, they're
the size of
car-sized
small
drones.
cars, which means they're not used by the typical, as they call them, hobbyist. This is not a hobbyist kind of thing.
Well, if you look it up, which I did this morning, the typical size of a drone used by a, quote, this is what I Googled, alien overlord is car size. Small car size is generally what the alien overlords prefer.
Okay. Jack in Newport, thank you for calling.
Hey, Jack, what's up?
Hey, guys. I just want to point out the irony of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds.
Oh, yeah.
New Jersey.
That's right. Did it start in New Jersey?
War of the Worlds was a radio show by Orson Welles that that pretended, but people didn't know there was pretending, that aliens from outer space had invaded Earth. And didn't people, I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, had heart attacks and they panicked, and it was a brilliant thing. People should check it out. So what was your point about War of the Worlds in this?
Well, my point is the setting was in Jersey.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they landed in New Jersey. Yep.
And?
Well, I'm just pointing out the irony. Maybe they're back.
Well, maybe they are. Orson Welles is not back, but maybe they are back. Jack, that's a good memory, actually. Thank you for calling and reminding us about that. By the way, that's pretty great broadcast. Even though it's a little bit outdated sounding, it's pretty great radio history.
Here's Lucy from Cape Cod. My husband has a drone he uses for fishing offshore. It's registered. Those in New Jersey should be registered too. But just before COVID, someone was flying a drone continually every day in late afternoon over our neighborhood where lots of folks have outdoor showers. Post beach, very creepy.
Now, let me ask you a question. Knowing our coworkers as they do, we just got a note from Aiden saying, breaking, CNN has obtained a photo of the man flying the aircraft. We have it. We can show it on the screen. I would say in all likelihood, this is not, well, exactly.
There, there.
You know,
my goodness, that's right. E.T. is pointing right at us.
This show is so juvenile when it comes to topics of great importance to the American people. Thank you for that. You can take that down. Oh, that's the alien right there. I see that guy with a horrible beard.
Roger in Rhode Island. What do you think, Roger?
Hello, Roger, Rhode Island. What's up?
Hello, folks. First-time caller, long-time listener.
A lot of drone first-time callers. Thank you. What's up?
Yeah, 48-year veteran of aviation technician.
Oh, great.
Working with the FAA for about 20 years in the safety group.
And?
Some of the key points here is that any of these human-occupied drones, which they're out there, they're the size of a Volkswagen GTI. They have to be registered with the FAA. They have to take certifications to fly them, just like you would like a sport pilot or a private pilot. And another item, if any of these drones are operating below 500 feet, that's a regulation violation, and the FAA would know about it. Number two, anything that's in a metropolitan area near a commercial airport like Logan or LaGuardia or JFK or Newark or Peterborough or Morristown, New Jersey, they would be being tracked by the FAA air traffic controllers. And just so they don't interfere with the commercial aircraft traffic that's going and coming from these major airports.
Well, hey, Roger, can I interrupt you for 1 second? You've gone down a litany of regulations or whatever the proper nomenclature is for what they have to comply with. It seems to me, based on the limited knowledge I have of this, that there's widespread violation of these regulations.
We just got a text from a private pilot who said he does a single-engine plane. About a year ago, one drone was 200 feet from off the aircraft he was in.
100%.
Yeah.
So why isn't the FAA doing something about this?
Well, they are trying. Whenever a drone is sold, it's required. It says it on the package if you're buying a recreational drone just for videoing your neighborhood. It says you have to take this exam. And
I didn't know this.
You can imagine the widespread violations that are going on because people are not aware of it.
Well, maybe we can arrest Jeff Bezos. But go ahead. What are you saying?
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's a commercial operator, so he has to have commercial operator permits to fly these drones all around Los Angeles and deliver packages.
Well,
and they have to be tracked by transponders because they're following it to your address by GPS.
So why don't we know? So Roger, why don't we know more about who's in these drones?
Right, based on what you're telling us.
You know what I'm saying? Why is this still a mystery?
Well, because you need to talk to the proper people at the Federal Aviation Administration who are overseeing the operation control of these.
Yeah.
And this is a whole department of the Federal Aviation Administration that oversees licensing, registration.
But you think,
and
but I guess,
tracking.
Roger.
Hey, Roger, this is really helpful.
It is
We're going to
helpful.
follow up on this.
But I
Thank
think the
you.
question remains: the White House should be able to facilitate that, right?
Well, not only
I mean,
facilitate, if these
yeah.
rules exist as Roger is describing, and they're in violation of them, why are these people not being held to account?
That's another great point, Jim.
Thank you.
And
I
as one of our
appreciate that.
texters says, and a lot of people are saying, we went through this tragedy last night with the United Healthcare executive murdered, and the texters are pointing out you can find this guy, the alleged shooter, in just a couple of days, and they still can't tell you all these weeks later where these drones are coming from. Very suspicious, Jim.
Indeed.
Indeed.
We got a break.
Okay, we are moving on.
By the way, if anybody during the show knows anything that's real and significant, text us and Marjorie will check them out and update people. No, I'm serious. I mean, you don't know anything about this.
I don't know anything about
Nothing.
drones. No, I know nothing
And
at
it's
all
also,
about them.
your kind of speculation just increases the terror. Like, you do nothing to calm anybody who is I know uncalm is not a word, but you know what I mean.
We're not
Nothing.
We're not in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But if they were hovering over my house, I would be concerned, Jim.
Also,
I
let me
wanna
tell you
know.
something. Marjorie said to me
Yeah.
off the air,
Yeah.
I'm going to paraphrase, but it was almost this.
Okay.
If we lose a piece of New Jersey, it's not the end of the world. Was that inaccurate? Was that and people are applauding, obviously. And the people who applauded are from New Jersey, which is really incredible.
Well, you know, you have
What's
a
that?
point. You ever go through the New Jersey
my
Turnpike?
God.
It is the ugliest
It is the
highway in
ugliest.
America.
The ugliest.
Oh my God!
How
with
about
all that
Secaucus
industrial
with the
oh,
pig smells?
It's just
I mean,
disgusting.
really?
Yeah, we could get rid of that part of
Okay.
New Jersey without too much
Okay,
problem.
we're
I don't
done
think.
now.
Anyway, after a quick break, Live Music Friday, courtesy of the team behind Funny Uncle Cabaret, the brains behind the show, Peter DeMuro, with singer Robert McFletcher-Jones and drag queen Misery McRae. This is some great music up next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH Live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, the brilliant and unafraid poet and public intellectual Nikki Giovanni. She used poetry as a platform to tell the truth, sticking up for justice and humanity along the way. We remember the literary light, plus the fandom around Luigi Mangione, and with the Golden Globe nominations, people are thirsting for a fight between Selena Gomez and Ariana Grande. We take on this and more in our Arts and Culture Week in Review, today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com. And MSI United States, bringing reproductive health care and all the opportunity that comes with bodily autonomy to women in some of the most remote places in the world. More at msiunitedstates.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. It's time for Live Music Friday, unless the drones interfere, which could really be horrible.
That's right.
This weekend is a
Fly
Central
right through
Square,
here.
exactly, dance complex from the mind of director and choreographer Peter DeMuro. It's the annual holiday cabaret special known as Funny Uncle Cabaret. It's a meditation on found families versus the ones we're born into and the role those families can play during the stressful holiday season. In a minute, we'll talk with, I guess, the conceptualist, Peter, drag queen Misery McRae. Hey, Misery, nice to see you. How you doing? And singer Robert McFletcher-Jones. But first, a live performance. This is Robert performing the Christmas song with collaborative pianist Andy Lance. Thank you.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe helps to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh, and every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase from kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. Mr. Andy Lance on piano. Please get up one more time for Andy Lance, please. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh, and every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase from kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you.
Robert McFletcher Jones, accompanied by Andy Lance. Robert, you want to join? Is Robert joining us, or is he staying over here? What's the deal? He's joining us. Boy,
Okay.
does that initiate the Christmas season?
That was beautiful. That was fantastic.
Fabulous,
That was
Robert and Andy.
fantastic.
Thank you. It was great.
So Peter, tell us how this whole thing started this weekend, the cabaret spectacular for the holidays.
Funny Uncle Cabaret is a long time thing we've been doing with different iterations, like a full show, a reading, and with full out dancing. And this year, I wanted to combine some of my past with all my dancers, all the folks at the dance complex, plus some of the friends I found at the Napoleon Room at Club Cafe and the cabaret world. And so the first part is the retelling of the Nutcracker story, as you mentioned, about families of choice, adopted families, the families we find in our lives. And then the second half is singing. Andy Lance will play one night, Brian Patton the other, and people can come and sing a song with us. It can be gender bending, it can be a little naughty, it can be whatever it wants to be in the second half.
Before we get to Misery and Robert, can you just fill in the blank there about your personal story for a couple of seconds, if you don't mind?
Sure, it all started in a small radio station. No. I've been watching reruns of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And I started my career here in Boston in the 80s and then left for 20 years. I toured around the world with a wonderful woman named Liz Lerman, and we created community engagement projects throughout the world, along with professional dancers and different pockets of older people, younger people, et.cetera. And came back to Boston about 11 years ago to run the dance complex. I made my professional debut on that stage in the 80s, and we're like a United Nations of dance, and we cultivate that everybody has a right and a privilege to dance. It's not a privilege; it's a right to dance, and we've been cultivating that for 30-some years at the dance complex. And then I make work under the name Public Displays of Emotion as well, including Funny Uncle.
Misery, how'd you get involved in this?
Peter just came and asked me to be part of it because we have, I went to BOCO as well, and I actually danced at the Boston Dance Complex. So he came to me and asked me to be part of it, and I just had to be.
I read something, I think it was from one of our colleagues, Aiden, who may have spoken to you or spoken to one of you, you're not even sure what you're doing. It's that impromptu. This
Well,
weekend. Is that fair?
I know I'm doing all of this.
Okay.
So, but when I spoke to Peter, I truly, you're right. I didn't know what it was all about, and I was like, "Yep, just call me. Let me know when you want me to be there. I will be there." And then
By the way, it's exactly like Marjorie every day at 11 o'clock.
That's right. Just show up.
Why are we here?
Exactly.
You never know what's going on until you get there.
Exactly.
So, Peter asked me to be part of it, and I just went, whatever you want me, I'm there.
Robert, how about you? What's your connection? Move your mic down about an inch if you don't mind. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm grateful. I had the opportunity to work with Peter because of the fact that Brian Patton, if you've never been to the Napoleon Room or Club Cafe, you must go. Because
Yes.
Brian Patton on Wednesday and on Andy Lance on Thursday host open mic. And so we had the opportunity to do open mic. That was the first time because I also go to Boco or went to Boco with my Boco alums. Yeah. And so then Peter asked me to do it a couple of years ago. And it was the first opportunity, a paid opportunity that I had here. And so I'm always and forever grateful for that. And also very excited about this year's show.
Yes.
So, Robert, with the beautiful voice that we just heard
Thank
singing for us, tell us about the Boston Children's Choir. We had members of that choir with us.
We did.
A year or
We did
so
last
ago.
year,
yeah.
I think,
For
yeah.
people that don't know, tell us about the Children's Choir.
Thank you so much for that. It was started by Hubie Jones, which I believe.
know that.
I believe that was one of the first people that you met.
How'd you know that?
Well,
when I moved here 35 years ago or so, one of the first people I met was the legendary Hubie Jones, who welcomed me to the city and taught me more about this community than almost anybody in the decades since. One of the great men of our time. But go ahead.
He's a king in 91, literally about to have his 91st birthday.
Oh, wow.
And so, yes, and he actually just did, and so we honor him. But going back to, and also Aiden was kind enough to send me the podcast of BCC that was on earlier last year. And so that's how I've heard about it.
Okay.
Yeah. But Boston Children's Chorus is what you have set up, what you were talking about at the dance club box, that every person should have the right to quality music education. Boston Children's Chorus provides that through working with different places, through 11 different choirs around the city. We work with about 350 students that are part of our after-school program, and then I'm blessed to be the conductor of the in-school program, where we serve about 1,500 students throughout Boston and the Chelsea area.
It's fabulous. And they are fabulous. They're just totally fabulous.
So, Peter, too, you touched on a little bit about the Central Square Dance Complex, but it seems like there's everything over there from what I've read, from ballet to flamenco to something called Froca?
Yes, Froca. Yes,
Yeah.
Silver teaches a wonderful class. It's a mix of like moves from the islands, and then it kind of makes it Zumba with it, a little rumba, Zumba, and it mixes together with high-end music, high velocity music along with it.
So, it's people who are professionals, and it's people who are just can barely put one foot in front of the other kind of deal?
Definitely. We have ages 3 to 90 in the classes. We have a whole slew of classes for 55 plus during the week, and I need to get myself in that class very soon. Very much so. And the place is like a United Nations of dance. It just finds its way on Saturday. You go from the top floor to the bottom, and you're in Spain with flamenco, and you're with capoeira from Brazil, all the way down, and it really has a place where it solves a lot of problems by moving, because it's hard to hate someone when you're dancing with them.
That's right.
And solve those problems. Can I solve the mystery of the drag presence in Funny Uncle? Because I forgot to mention that earlier. Is that we look at the drag community as houses, and Misery is a famous mother of several drag queens in town, and we're looking to plant this in this edition of Funny Uncle, because in the future we're making a project with libraries. I hope you're listening out here, where children and their families who identify as queer will make storybooks, and they'll perform them for drag queens as opposed to reverse. So we can get it won't turn the drag queen straight if the kids perform for them. So
speaking of drag queens, Misery, one of the sad parts of this, we had a ton of drag queens on this show, and then last couple of years when we like to pretend that nothing bad happens here, it only happens in other places. We know what happened in the Seaport, we know what happened in Jamaica Plain, and all those. How's the world of drag queen brunches, readings, that sort of thing? Where are things in 2024? Is there still fear, and there's still these insane protests and that sort of thing? Or not?
I truly believe that there's still fear, but you have to pass that as an entertainer, as a professional entertainer that I am. I think that you need to pass beyond that. You have to be able to be one with oneself. And if you're good, then you can portray that to everybody else, and everybody else will. You have to bring them into your world.
Is that limited the number of venues where you can perform? Because I'm not talking about I was talking about performers being fearful. How about venue owners being fearful they're going to be violent?
Nervous. They're a little nervous. I work in a lot of straight clubs.
Yeah.
And the one thing that they all come up to me and like, don't touch anybody, make sure that you have consent. But the funny thing is that most clubs, straight clubs that I work, they're more willing to touch me. Well, they always want to touch me, but that's besides the point. They're more willing to touch me, so it opens the arena that consent is okay.
Ms. I wonder if this is something that's relatively new because of all the political stuff involving drag queens, or is this something that's been going on for a long time when you say the nervousness? Right. Is it newer?
No, it's still there from the olden times.
It is, okay.
It's again, you have to have consent to do anything at any establishment. And my brunches and my shows are very high energy, and I'm the girl that they call the split and kick queen. So, my brunches are very high energy, and I hire a lot of entertainers throughout the Boston area, rather the New England area, from New Hampshire all the way down to Connecticut, and I hire them because they're entertaining and people want to come and see them.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be part of this Funny Uncle Cabaret because I'm able to share my story. I've been an entertainer for 30 plus years, even though I look 27.
That's right, you do. Very youthful.
So, even though I look 27.
Is Andy's mic working? I never know is Andy's mic working?
Hello?
Hi. The reason we want to talk to Andy, beyond the fact you're a really talented pianist, equally importantly, I learned before you perform, one, Marjorie, he's a sustaining member of GBH.
Oh, my goodness.
And two, he has probably the best and crassest Christmas sweater that we've seen so far. If you're watching on YouTube, you can tell.
Do you want to see the reveal?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I had you didn't
oh my
tell
God.
Come on, Jim. I'm sure you did.
That was great.
How'd you get involved in all this, Andy?
So I've been playing piano with open mic at Club Cafe since 2010. The last 6.5 years with Frankie Campo Felice, who joins me every Thursday night. That's how I reconnected with Peter DeMuro, actually. We knew each other from, 30 years ago.
Yes.
And then he's now become one of our regulars, gets up and sings, and his singing has really blossomed during those years.
Speaking of getting up and singing, my understanding is in the show, forget sing-alongs. That causes me to have hives to begin with. You invite people to stand up and perform during the show?
Sure. Well, in the second half, we keep the first half a little sacred. Yeah.
Isn't that that's like when we get a bad caller and there's nothing we can do with it. What do you do when?
Well, I guess you put a smile on and you listen. Sometimes if something's not quite on key, or and the same is true for dance. If somebody's dancing and they're not the best dancer in the world, I find the 3 positive things I can, and I focus on those. And
what
Misery,
a nice
we just
guy.
got a text. Anonymous text. Little known secret. Misery makes the best biscuits in the world. Is that true?
Actually, it is.
Okay.
It is.
Bring him next
great
time.
Cook, if I say so myself, and I know who that came from.
I bet you do.
I really do.
So, Robert, if tomorrow night, let's say Tchaikovsky came back and attended, what do you think he would think?
He would think, did Misery bring the biscuits?
If you got room in the kitchen and you got some buttermilk, I'll definitely go and make
All
you
right. Okay, then he'll come back Saturday.
Well, Peter, we kind of glossed over that at the beginning, but the Tchaikovsky Nutcracker Suite and stuff, a lot of us, when we went to see that when we were kids or read the book or something, we did think, what's up with this uncle?
Right, well, he's a little creepy
Yeah,
sometimes.
so tell us how that relates to your show.
Sure. Well, I remember I played Drosselmeyer with Boston Ballet in
you did?
19 1988, 89. Bruce Marks asked me. I was a modern dancer. All the ballet boys hated me because they, worked years to get the cape down, and so I was asked to do it. And I would finish the first act every night, and that's I get to bow, and then I leave the theater. And I had this withdrawal from playing that role from the little girl who played Clara, and I had all this paternal stuff coming out, and I would cry in the wings. I'd wrap myself in the wings, and I'd weep myself and go home. And from there, my sister, 10 years later, my sister's trying to adopt a baby from Mexico. The adoption gets botched. It took us 14 years to get this child to be, named part of our family. She was always part. And she's now 22 and doing very well. But these parallels in my life, it just kind of seemed that and my community at Napoleon Room, at Dance Complex, they're all different sets of families that I choose and you fight for. And so that's what it comes down to.
We have another song.
No, we don't have a song. We have actually a monologue.
A monologue.
Is that going to be you?
I'm sorry.
That's going to be me.
Tell us what you're doing. And Andy?
Yeah, right. And so the concept around the original writing of this is about 18 pages of a monologue. We're not going to do that much today. But they were set to different parts of the Tchaikovsky score, inspired by David Suchet from the Royal Shakespeare Company, who I saw perform a monologue to a Fritz Kreisler sonata when I was 17 in Des Moines, Iowa, and they were on tour there. And so Andy is going to accompany me excerpting the Tchaikovsky score to this monologue.
Can you gently put your headset down and join Andy and perform? Thank you very much. Well, Peter's getting situated over there with Andy. Either of you want to give us like another 30-second pitch about why this is a wonderful way to spend your weekend? How about it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Why this is a wonderful way, funny Uncle Cabaret is a wonderful way to spend your weekend.
It's just amazing. You get to learn and hear different stories of people, of drag queens going through trials and tribulations of their lives and stuff like that. And it's also just fun.
Fun is a good
thing.
Fun
something, if you don't have something to do, it makes you forget about your trials and tribulations that you're going through.
That's right.
So just come and see it and come and have a good time.
Absolutely. And it's for all ages. It's for
exactly.
And the music that is also going to be connected to it. You can also bring your own song, and you might as well bring your own holiday song, especially
You know what it's for? Ages 1 to 92.
That's it, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Here's Peter with Andy accompanying. Thank you, gentlemen.
So I told you, I'd gotten this role as the uncle in Nutcracker. And we rehearse and we rehearse. We have our out-of-town tryout in Worcester, of all places. It's so exciting. And finally, we open. We have the first of 52 performances. The flying balloons, the tutus, the men in white tights, the magic, the explosions, the men in white tights. Did I mention the men in white tights? It's so exciting. Such melodies, they persist, and about the 18th or 19th performance, 2.5 weeks through, I realize these tunes are persisting as I walk out of the theater, as I go home, as I go to sleep or try to go to sleep. I wake up and Tchaikovsky's in my brain, but it's all right. It's all right. Nothing can deter me from being at the theater way before call time so I can warm up my arms because gestures are very important in my role. And then, a matinee maybe a week or so before Christmas, all that began as that spectacular thrill, the mechanics of the flying balloons, the explosion smoke, the human hair in my very expensive gray wig, the tulle, the feathers, even those men in white tights, it all just starts to seem rote and plain, as the Great Plains where I come from in the Midwest. These elements that once thrilled, it was monotonous. They seem to settle like the fake flakes of snow that fell from the flies. After all, the dancing, it's minimal. The mime, literal. I mean, it's literally literal. The magic tricks, they're difficult and mastered. All there seems to be is repetition. All there seems to be is repetition. All there seems to be is repetition. But there is one element, each and every night, within all this extravagant madness, of which I never tire. I anticipate holding hands with a wide-eyed little girl who hides behind my cape as I slay a mouse, whose jaw drops as I make her dolls dance, who laughs as we minuet the minuet. Her every cell arrests itself as I make a miniature tree grow magically tall. Oh, she deafens me with her sweet-pitched shrieks as I push the drawing room walls away and float a skylight to infinity, night after night after night after night, after matinee after night.
Speaking with the folks from Funny Uncle Cabaret, which runs tomorrow and Sunday at the Dance Complex in Central Square. For information and to book tickets, go to dancecomplex.org. That's dancecomplex.org for the Funny Uncle Cabaret. Thank you all so much for coming in.
Thanks,
Up
all of you.
next,
It's great.
GBH's Callie Crosser. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from medical bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. Sherlock Holmes is the world's most famous detective. But why didn't his creator love him as much as the rest of us do? Follow the clues and catch Lucy Worsley's Holmes vs. Doyle, Sunday night at 8 on GBH2.
This is 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. An attorney for President-elect Donald Trump's pick to lead the Department of Health and Human Services is petitioning the government to revoke its approval of the polio vaccine. The shot has protected millions of people for decades from a virus that could cause paralysis or death. NPR's Luke Garrett reports lawmakers on Capitol Hill continue to raise concerns about the nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska tells NPR she is meeting with RFK Jr. next week.
I am from a state where vaccines have saved whole villages, and so I want to talk to him about the issue of vaccines.
RFK Jr. ran for president as an independent and spread anti-vaccine messages and conspiracies. Kennedy dropped out of the race and endorsed Trump. Murkowski says beyond vaccines, she also wants to hear his ideas about pesticide use and nutrition.
I'm curious to talk to him about some of the food issues as well, so it should be a great conversation.
Kennedy has been highly critical of big food and pharmaceutical industries. Luke Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
The sudden collapse of the Syrian regime last weekend came as a surprise to many, including Iran. NPR's Jackie Northam reports for years Syria allowed Tehran access to Iranian Middle East proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas.
Syria allowed Iran to set up a critical land bridge to Lebanon, so a corridor to Lebanon, so it could funnel weapons to Hezbollah for many years. This was crucial to get fighters, to weapons going both ways, actually. But now that the anti-government rebels control Syria, that strategic route to Lebanon is really most likely off limits to Iran.
That's NPR's Jackie Northam reporting. Russian forces have launched nearly 300 missiles and drones across Ukraine, targeting its power plants and energy energy grid. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports more than half of the country's energy infrastructure has been destroyed since the war broke out.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called it one of the largest strikes on the country's energy grid since the beginning of the full-scale war in February 2022. He said Russia attacked with nearly 200 drones and at least 93 missiles, some supplied by North Korea. Ukraine's military said F-16 fighter jets helped shoot down the missiles. Ukraine's energy sector is warning that there will be more rolling power cuts to ration electricity. The Ukrainian foreign minister said he wants allies to deliver at least 20 additional air defense systems to protect the energy grid. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
This is NPR.
And from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. 2 corrections officers in the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department have been indicted on charges they provided false information to qualify for unemployment payments and small business loans during the pandemic. Prosecutors allege that 25-year-old Chrisnell Oriska and 38-year-old Jasmine Murphy, both of Boston, provided false information to get money that was intended to support small businesses and unemployed people struggling during the COVID pandemic. Authorities say both women were working at the time and they lied about their income. They're due to face charges of wire fraud and lying to a financial institution this afternoon in Boston federal court. Dorchester residents dealing with health care gaps since Kearney Hospital closed discussed their concerns with city health leaders last night. They say they're experiencing much longer emergency room wait times at other hospitals picking up patients once served by Kearney. The executive director of the Boston Public Health Commission, Dr. Bisola Ojikutu, says they're considering the impact of Kearney's closure as they weigh options for the building.
And thinking through how we can best promote health equity and ensure that neighborhoods that have long been challenged by healthcare needs and haven't had the greatest healthcare outcomes will get better access as we move forward.
The panel of health leaders will make recommendations to city and state officials about how the former hospital could best serve the community. Kearney was shuttered in August as part of Stewart Healthcare's bankruptcy proceedings. In sports, the Bruins and Celtics both have the night off. Sunny and cold, highs in the 30s this afternoon. The Geminid meteor shower peaks tonight with lows in the teens and single digits. Right now, it's 20 degrees in Boston. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for chefs and designed for restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hi there. A quick programming note. We've gotten a decent number of texts and emails and that sort of thing asking why the governor has not joined us recently, last month or so. Well, she's joining us on January 7th. Is that at 11 o'clock or 11 o'clock on January 7th? We're very glad she will be with us. We're joined at the BPL now by Callie Crossley. Callie's the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. You can catch that Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6. You can also hear Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. She also co-hosts GBH's The Culture Show, which airs daily at 2 right here on 89.7. I assume you all know Friday's Week in Review, and Friday's show is live here and is huge fun right here at the library. So if you're here, stick around, and if you're not, come on down. Hello, Callie.
Hello.
Hey there.
So, Callie Crossley, I learned that you had an opportunity to interview the great poet Nikki Giovanni. Tell us about her, and she has just passed away at age 81, but she has been famous for her work for, what, half a century now?
A half a century. For people who don't know her, she was one of the leaders of the Black Arts Movement, what was called that, and that included the novelist John Oliver Killens and other playwrights and writers, Intisaki Shange and Sonia Sanchez. But she sort of got commercial success, which, as she herself said, never happens to a poet, when she was 27, 28 years old. At 30, she's filling up 1,000+ seats in Lincoln Center's Alice Tully Hall. She's like, what happened? I can't believe it. She has a Grammy nomination, 7 NAACP awards, 3 New York Times bestsellers, and 31 honorary degrees. But none of that speaks to what she meant for those of us who just really marveled and respected her work. I was just so taken with it. She was a writer par excellence. Some may know that she spent her final years at Virginia Tech, where when that tragedy happened after that shooter was on the campus, she wrote the wonderful poem to sort of bring together the campus and the nation.
He was
after
her
that.
student. The
He was
shooter was
that's
her
right.
student.
And she had warned the university
Exactly,
that she was
right.
concerned about him. And then she wrote that poem. But it's her other poems that just have such resonance for the rest of us throughout the times. Most of her poems, at some point or other, were used in readings. She actually, the way that she wrote her poetry, well before there were anything considered poetry slams, her poems are meant to be read and to be performed, if you will. And so I just can't say enough about how huge the loss is and how much her contribution was.
We have a little sound.
Yes, we
actually.
do.
Do you want to do that, Marjorie?
Yeah, this is just a little snippet, but this is Nikki Giovanni reading her poem, part of it called Mothers. And what a great voice.
What a great voice. One of the biggest poems for those of us who like to perform these readings, were asked to perform, was Ego Tripping. And the whole title is called Ego Tripping, There Must Be a Reason Why. And she, in this poem, incorporates the history of black folks connected to Africa, and it's directed toward black women in particular. So I'll just do the beginning and the end for you.
Oh, I didn't know this was coming.
Oh, yes. I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. And it concludes this way. It's a beautiful poem. Please read the whole of it. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal. I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky. Ego tripping.
I love that.
You interviewed her.
That was very nice.
And, you know, one of the great parts of doing what we all do for a living is you get to meet people you admire. One of the worst parts of meeting people you admire is they often disappoint, and it's better you never met them and just consume their work. What was she like?
She was delightful. You know, she mentored so many other poets. Kwame Alexander is one that comes to mind immediately. But she was always so happy to really engage with both readers and in a thoughtful way, and those critics even of her work. As I said, she was just a writer's writer, so she wanted to talk about not only the ideas that she put in her poems, but also the process of writing it. So it was a fabulous conversation with her at all times.
You know, I saw her do a reading, I think at the 92nd Street Y, but somewhere in New York City when I lived there. And she is such a huge, when you only hear her voice or read it, it's such a huge thing. And then you see her.
And she
was
tiny.
a little tiny person. And then when you see that, and then this huge thing comes out, it was an incredible time. And I'm sure you're honored to have been
I am honored.
physically
Yes.
in her space. We're talking to Callie Crossley.
So there's this allegation which Jay-Z denies involving some sexual assault with a young woman. This is involved in the whole Diddy saga. What do you make of this?
Well, you know, a lot of people, and this is internet speculation and others, have been sort of waiting with bated breath to see who are the names of folks of big names who might be associated with P. Diddy. Just a few years ago, we celebrated the 50th year of hip hop. And if you did the research on it, you would see how integral Diddy has been since he was young as an intern. So it's impossible to have been anybody in the business without having some interaction with him. Now, the question is, what kind of interaction?
Yeah.
And I think that Jay-Z's very, very powerful, strong rebuttal of this suggests that he was waiting for somebody to suggest that because that they had interacted and worked together, he may too have been part of what we've now read about. He's not been charged. I mean, he's been charged, but he's not been convicted of these horrific sexual assault crimes. And so what I make of it is Jay-Z's pretty strong, coming back. I also say, as we've learned in many conversations over the years, we three of us and others, sometimes the folk that you like and respect and you cannot imagine end up in scenarios that you wouldn't have thought. So it's yet to be determined. There's no evidence, and Jay-Z is asking for the person who's accusing him to identify themselves.
And, I mean, everybody knows the charges against Combs as of the moment are criminal charges. He's in jail. He's tried to get bail at least 3 times. He hasn't gotten it. This is a civil proceeding. And with all due, I know you didn't intend this when you said a young woman. She's not a young woman. She's 13, was 13 years old.
I shouldn't have said that. You're
right. She was a girl.
That's right.
And she says that she was raped by both Combs and by Jay-Z. There was a woman celebrity unidentified present. I agree. I mean, Jay-Z's, his denunciation of this, saying if it's true, bring criminal charges, is serious. But again, the charges are really serious. And the lawyer, who is generally seen, or at least criticized by people like Jay-Z, as an ambulance chaser, that was the exact same accusation that Deshaun Watson's lawyers leveled at this young woman. This girl's lawyer was a girl at the time, and it turned out every allegation against Deshaun Watson was likely true.
Right.
So again, we don't know what the situation is here, but this is a real serious stuff. And the thing that I think is most concerning, whether this is true or not, is that there were so many people of huge prominence, iconic figures in the Combs world.
That's right.
And and we've been told all along, as you say, we're going to start hearing names.
I would say one other thing about this. In the charges, if people have the stomach to read them, they're pretty bad. This is I'm talking about the Sean Diddy Combs charges. The scenario, the process by which he conducted these assaults are always someone else is there, either as witness or participant. So that in itself is a little troubling, because what this person has posited, allegedly, through this lawyer, is that this was the scenario.
And by the way, in terms of Combs, and obviously the alleged crimes of Combs should not be visited on another human being. Right. They should be judged on their own. However, Combs denied everything a la Jay-Z until CNN ended up having a video where he is in a towel in a hallway of a hotel, physically dragging, I think by the hair, a woman who's trying to get away from him on the elevator there. And then all of a sudden he does a video apologizing profusely. This is not me. So at least keep an open mind. In the same note, if I can, I was stunned. I didn't read this last night. I knew it came out. Most people of a certain age remember that one of the biggest stories of the year in 2006 was about 3 Duke lacrosse players allegedly raping this young woman, Crystal Mangum. And in the last 24 hours, Crystal Mangum has spoken, and here's what she had to say. It was on the Let's Talk with Kat podcast 2 days ago. Here it is.
They took me into their home, and they trusted. The Bible says that you shouldn't do harm to your neighbor that lives trustingly beside you. And they were my brothers, and they trusted me that I wouldn't betray their trust. And I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't. And that was wrong.
And by the way, they were not convicted, I should say, but lives were pretty seriously destroyed. What's your, this is pretty heavy. What's your reaction to what she had to say?
I have transcended anger. I am somewhere near rage about this against her, because I know how many women, I have interviewed so many women for whom this is a real life situation. And every time one of these women who lies or comes forward, I don't care if it's 5,000 years later, it just undermines all the women who are out here who have been real victims. And I am rageful, because also this started, if you will, and you could now argue in light of this confession, was it an appropriate or inappropriate, sort of looking again at sports, at college sports. And as we know, several other cases came up in which it was proved that, yes, this was happening. So, but then this allows God forbid it should happen again, folks to say, see, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about. They all lie. Now, in this case, obviously, she lied for no money, because usually that's the deal. She's lying because she's trying to get money. Obviously, she mentioned sort of God and faith here, so maybe she's had some kind of faith thinking about, I don't reconcile, I don't know what's going on.
But in the same statement, she talks about her faith.
Yeah.
She says, quote, "I don't have any regrets."
Yeah,
so I would argue that she's not quite conversion ready, if I may.
And obviously something is going on with her that's not quite right, because this is horrible. This is horrible. And I'm certain we will hear from these 3 young men who steadfastly kept saying, no, this never happened. But the circumstances as they were look bad. And so we have to remember that now as we're going into these scenarios, as we just discussed with Jay-Z and others. It can look bad, and it also cannot have happened. But my initial and my continuing response will be just rage about this, because I know what harm it will do.
We should point out that we just heard this recording was done at the North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women, where she's in prison after being convicted of second-degree murder of her then-boyfriend in 2013. So there's a troubled life here, obviously.
So speaking of troubled, our favorite term that we first read in a Brian McGrory column, and then we traced it back to Tim Snyder at Yale University, anticipatory obedience.
Yes.
And it came to light, Brian wrote about it after the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, killed the editorial endorsing Kamala Harris, right around the time the Los Angeles Times, we'll get to them in a minute, killed their editorial endorsing Kamala Harris. Well, this is not quite this. Well, maybe it is anticipatory obedience. Maybe it's just bottom line obedience. Both Mark Zuckerberg, who has had a very troubled relationship in both directions with Donald Trump through his company, and Jeff Bezos are contributing mightily to the inauguration of Donald Trump. Now, we discussed this, the two of us this morning. Is it anticipatory obedience again, or is it them saying, this guy's the boss, we have a lot of government contracts, it matters to our bottom line, we'll bend the knee to make sure that we make as much money as we possibly can?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was, did they contribute to President Biden's inauguration? It turns out at least one of them tried, and he said, I'm not taking any money from big tech.
Zuckerberg did not, I know that.
Okay. But what's his name? Bezos did try to. And his point, or the point of his people, was that we know there's going to be all kinds of discussion that y'all are not going to like about big tech and policies going forward. So we're not taking any funding for the inauguration. Just remind people that the inauguration is privately funded. So, people giving to this can be in support of the president, or they just could be in support, generally speaking, of a nice inauguration, no matter who it is. But it's a privately funded ceremony. So that was my thing. So then after I found out, well, he didn't take it, then I thought, this looks like would you say anticipatory?
Anticipatory obedience.
Yes, I've read Tim Snyder's book, and I couldn't remember the phrase. Yeah, it looks like that. Let's note that one or both of them have gone to Mar-a-Lago to make sure that they have a conversation. It was nasty response for sure for Bezos, and he, I'm sorry, with Zuckerberg, and he went back and forth for a long time. And then
Zuckerberg knocked him off Facebook.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And now Zuckerberg is saying, well, that was a mistake and all of that. So it looks like it.
I know this is huge money and some of the most powerful people in the world, but when you hear elected officials say, a donation had no effect on my decision making, well, even if you're going to buy that garbage, it did have an impact on your ability to meet with this.
The access.
How many of you have been to Mar-a-Lago to plead your case on whatever you care about with the president? Oh, nobody. Nobody. But if you give $1 million to the inauguration, you'll probably get an audience and at least get heard.
Yes.
I mean, so this notion that money does not buy outcomes is just, it's really...
So here will be an interesting something for us to observe as we go forward. There are tons of billionaires in the cabinet. Yeah. I mean, so how do you impress them with my, I'm just, if you're trying to get to whichever billionaire is in the cabinet to, try to plead your case, they're like, what's that? That's my Starbucks budget. What are you talking about? I mean, I don't know how you now therefore get through money alone access.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it could be.
Who knows?
It'll be interesting to see.
You know, speaking of Trump and bended knee or whatever it is, well, I mentioned a minute ago the Los Angeles Times owner also killed the endorsement there. He has announced that he is introducing a bias meter, he calls it, that I think it's an AI program that'll be available sometime in January, I think he said, to test whether the people who work for him on the news side, not the opinion side, on the news side, are exhibiting bias in their reporting. Understandably, the reporters there, a couple of whom's leaders have already resigned, saying we have an ethical code, we already comply with this, we don't need a bias meter. This is, well, what's your reaction to this?
Well, my reaction is, first of all, these are his people, and he hadn't said much for a while, and then all of a sudden, my National Association of Black Journalists colleague, Kevin Merida, was a top editor who started this first resignation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, when they killed the first editorial about Kamala Harris, he's like, okay, I'm out. I can't do that. And no finer journalist can there be. So there's no question about, you know, his integrity and all of that. And he said, this cannot happen. You can't reach over here and do this if you expect us to do the job that we're supposed to be doing. And we work hard to present all of sides as they are. So to me, he's already biased because he's saying stuff like, I can tell that they're already left-leaning, but he has no evidence. He didn't come to them and say, hey, this story, and this story demonstrates to me that you have some kind of, no, none of that. It does not, you know, so this reporter's like, show me where, what are you talking about? So, and then there's the whole AI part of it,
which is really
upsetting because, you know, AI can be programmed however you want it to be programmed. So I'm not certain what this is supposed to do. It's awfully undermining and insulting to the people who are working there, even as many of them are leaving because of that.
It's guilty until you're proven innocent,
right.
essentially.
And then it's scary about what will be left of a very fine newspaper.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's almost like, you know, he doesn't understand. The guy owns a newspaper, that the editorial page is where all the opinions are, and the op-ed page where the opinions are. And it's kind of the rules of the game. Both sides of the story in a news story. Somebody don't call you back, then maybe you won't get the side from that person. But that's sort of the rules of the road.
You know, right after the Washington Post editorial was killed by Jeff Bezos, we had Marty Barron on, who obviously former editor of the Globe and then editor of the Washington Post under Jeff Bezos, who was appalled by what Bezos had done. And one of us asked him, is there any reason to think this is going to spill over, not going to spill over into the news pages as opposed? And the issue for me is Jeff Bezos, let's say tomorrow next week, meets with Donald Trump, you know, again on bended knee. I want your contracts. I want your ever. Well, you know what I'd like at the Washington Post? I'd like one of those bias meters they have out. And I assume as soon as Trump hears about this, or whether he has or not, this is going to be the standard thing he says to newspaper editors who are business people. Why don't you do this? And if there's no bias, you have nothing to worry about. And if there is bias, then this will detect it. Before you go, we have a question for you. I mean, you're not a huge sports fan, but what we were talking about before was Bill Belichick, former Patriots coach, going to the University of North Carolina College. Here's a little bit of his introductory press conference at UNC, and we had a question for you about social media, where I think you know more than Marjorie and me. Here it is.
The amount of support that I got from Carolina grads, former Carolina football players, you know, people that are connected with this university was really overwhelming. And not that I'm any social media expert, because I'm not, but there was an awful lot of, you know, positive feedback from my face and stuff like that, and it was great.
So we want to know, our bosses, Jamie, everybody else, says we should do more social media. We try to do as much as possible. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We don't have accounts on MyFace. How many people have MyFace accounts here? Very few, it appears. Do you think we should have a MyFace account to help the show a little bit and get some excitement going?
You know, one of my favorite posters when he was here as a coach, there was pictures of Belichick, you know, and they had emotions underneath of each of the faces, happy, sad, whatever, and it was the same picture.
That's pretty.
I love it.
I'm so stupid and out of it. I'm like going along. I'm like, oh, it's the same picture.
Yeah,
So,
I think he was
I don't,
confused. What was the thing years ago, MySpace, that things
He
started
did another
out
one of
with,
these, not
Yeah.
My Face. So we are, but by the way, if people are disappointed, we will be signing up for My Face at the end of the show
Okay.
today.
All
What
right.
are you doing Sunday night there, Kelly Crossley?
I'm doing a full hour with mass politics props
great.
and political analysis before the inauguration. We're calling it our pre-inaugural political analysis. There's a lot of stuff going on. I would like to add before I go that
Please.
tonight, as you all know, I am a huge collector of Black Santas.
We do know
so
that.
Tonight
We've
I
seen
am
'em.
joining the Front Porch Collective for their, they're doing a weekend run of something called Holiday Feast. It's a really fun show using a stage reading from scripts from old sitcoms. And I'm the pre-discussion tonight, bringing some Black Santas. I'm already wearing my socks and my shirt. And we'll talk about my collection, how fun it is, and all of that.
You ever sent a photo? You posted a photo of your office? I don't even know.
Many other people have this year. You know, I'm horrible with photos, but it's a whole new, every year it's different.
I know, I gotta go. I was chastised by not stopping by.
There were 4 tours that came through GBH yesterday, and people were just, oh my God! So it was a lot of fun.
It is pretty cool. I mean, it is pretty cool. It is a wonderland
It
inside
is
your
a
office.
Black
There's
Santa
no question
Wonderland.
about it.
So I'll be
Absolutely.
talking about it tonight.
Okay.
Front Porch Collective.
Great. Kelly, good to see you.
Callie, thank
Take
you.
care.
We've been speaking with GBH's Callie Crossley, the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, Sundays at 89.7 at 6 p.m. You can also hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. And she's co-host of GBH's Culture Show, which airs daily at 2 o'clock. Today it's going to be live right here at the library, right after the 2 o'clock news for the Week in Review. Callie, thank you very much. I'll be by to see the Black Santa Wonderland next week. After a quick break, the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute is celebrating 30 years as an organization. We'll talk to its founder, Chaplain Clementina Cherry, about her work to end gun violence and violence in general, and to healing the grieving families left behind by that violence. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
We wrap up our week of reporting on active aging with pickleball. The fast-growing sport is particularly popular with older people.
My wife, who's 85 years old in January, is still competing in pickleball. And she, to me, is an inspiration for everybody, because how many 85-year-olds do you see out playing?
I'm Juana Summers. Hear from some top picklers on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and the Fair Housing Alliance of Massachusetts, working to end voucher-based and other forms of housing discrimination by providing legal services, education, and community resources to the Commonwealth. MAFHAM.org. And Boston Ballet, presenting The Nutcracker. Beloved characters, luminous dancing, and Tchaikovsky's memorable score will enchant audiences of all ages this holiday season. On stage now through December 29th. Official tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. In 1993, Louis D. Brown was a 15-year-old sophomore, smart kid looking forward to college, where he planned to pursue a PhD and his dream to become America's first black president. In December of that year, Louis was caught in a fatal crossfire shootout near his home in Dorchester. By the way, he was going to a pre-Christmas party at an organization called Teens Against Gun Violence. A year later, through incredible grief, his mother, Chaplain Clementina Cherry, started the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute to honor his legacy and continue the peacemaking work Louis so strongly believed in. Clementina Cherry, the founder and president and CEO of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, joins us at the library. They have a 30th anniversary celebration of the founding of the Institute. It's happening next Friday, the 20th, at Venezia, Boston. For information and to reserve tickets, I will be there, by the way, the ldbpeaceinstitute.org. We are both great admirers of Clementina's work. It's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, so Clementina, Jim kind of explained how the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute began, but elaborate on this. I mean, you just lost your son, and then a year later you start this effort. How did it all come together?
I tell people if I knew what I was doing, I'd be a very dangerous woman. So thank you for that. I think for me, I was one of those mothers that when I heard of a young black or brown child being killed, the narrative on the media would say it was a drug deal gone bad, they were in the wrong place, they were known to the police. As a mother, I gave a sigh of relief that could never happen to me because of the narrative. And when it did happen to me, I tell people when Lewis was killed is when I woke up. Because that was the narrative I was hearing. And so it's really, do I take my anger and retaliate? Or do I take my anger and transform that into saying, no mother raises their child to be killed, and no mother raises their child to kill. And within our community, we should be able to walk the streets anytime, anywhere, without being the fear of our children being killed. So I did what any mother would do. I turned my pain and anger into power and action. I didn't blame anybody. I had to look inside who Lewis was and who are the other Lewis Brown of the world, and how do I make sure his life doesn't end on that streets on Geneva Avenue. And 30 years later, here we are.
So
we are.
Clementine Sher, we're going to talk about where you are today and what the future looks like in a minute. When you founded this organization, again, a year after your son's death, what was your hope for? What did you intend to... Marjorie and I were talking, when we first met you, which was almost at that time, I think when I asked you to describe what you do, you said something like, with a smile on your face, I'm a wedding planner for funerals. Did I get that right?
Well, yes, you did. And I can be sarcastic at times because I have to joke, not to go crazy. Mm-hmm. So again, when somebody is arrested, we read them their Miranda rights, we provide them a lawyer. When somebody is killed on the streets, there is no process. So for me, when I left the hospital after I was told Lewis was brain dead, I left empty-handed physically and within my soul. What did I needed to do? So you know I'm a show and tell. Yes, Survivors, Burial, and Resource Guide. I developed this for hospitals and for anyone working with families. So at least this way, people know what to do from death notification, post-funeral activities, and then to deal with the media and with the state victim compensation. There is so much that we have to do in a very short window of time. So I can say, yes, I'm a wedding planner for funerals. I'm not a funeral director, but there's so many complex things to do. I don't respond to homicides anymore, so our police department, our hospitals, have these to make sure when a family, when they're making that death notification, that family has a guide that they know what to do from that death notification.
You know, when I was a reporter at the Herald, I went to a lot of funerals of teenagers. There were mostly young people that were killed. And your programs would be there explaining, you know, what to say to the brother or sister of the child that had been killed, or what to say, as you say, to the media, with all these pictures of the child that had died and their life story. And it was really something. It was multiple pages.
Yeah, because again, we tend to want to focus on how the bad things. Somebody was killed and their entire, whether it's a criminal history, the negative narrative. We wanted people to see who this person was, they were children, and what the possibilities are. And to make sure that we provided information where healing can begin to happen, so that we're not continuing to focus on the problem and that retaliation process. So our funeral programs are more for healing and for education and for remembering.
I remember one of the titles of one of those books was something like, that you recommended for the siblings, is, Do I Still Have a Brother?
Do I Still Have a Brother? I know my two younger children now are older than their oldest brother. And so that's something that, again, as siblings, grieve differently than mothers, grieve differently than fathers. We just all grieve differently. So understanding children, again, my children, I am now older than my oldest brother. Yeah. And how do you deal with that? How do you address that?
You know, one of the brilliant we're going to talk about what you're doing now, and again, as I say, what the plans are for the future, but I just want to say, many people know you from the Mother's Day March for Peace, which you were kind enough to ask me and Marjorie to MC a bunch of years ago, and I cannot tell a lie. I don't know if I ever told you this. I wasn't sure I wanted to go, because I was going to say, this has got to be one of the most horrible events with thousands of mothers and loved ones, and it was exactly what you said. Instead of talking about how kids died, it was a conversation and a day about how kids lived. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was a joyful experience. You're nodding in agreement, because so many people who suffered similar fates were with other people who suffered similar fates. And the feeling was incredible. And the other thing I learned from those, which is another one of your incredible deals, is you talk about Clementina Cherry all the time, about how in all of these shootings and horrible situations, there are two victims and two families. Explain what you mean by that.
You know, again, when we talk about, we tend to focus on violence and gun violence as a black issue, as an urban issue. It's not. It's a human rights issue, and it's a public rights issue. And so they're both families that are impacted.
Yeah.
The victim's family and the victimizer's family. But what came first? Did the victim come first, or did the victimizer come first? We still live in a society that we don't support people with their basic needs. You've got to do something wrong to get the attention. And so my own experience, my child could have easily been the one to take somebody's life, because I still live in the community. We raise our children with the best possibilities that we can. So when I found out who shot my son, I needed to figure out, I needed to meet the mother. I needed to meet the parents. Who could raise a child that could kill? Because if it was my son that killed another mother's child, I would want her to know who I was. That's not how I raised my child. And so we are losing at both ends. And until we can look at our criminal justice system to see that the people in front of them and look at their basic dignity and humanity, the cycle of retaliatory violence will stop. And so for me, again, if it was my child, what would I want? So we're both impacted. It's a full community that's impacted when somebody kills somebody.
We're talking to Chaplain Clementina Cherry. She's the founder and president and CEO of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, celebrating, by the way, on the day of the death, the 31st anniversary of the death of Louis, on December 20th, next Friday, week from Friday, at Venezia, Boston. For information or to get tickets, ldbpeaceinstitute.org. And there's a sliding scale, by the way, for people who would like to join us for that event.
You know, we had a chance to talk last week, maybe the week before, with Paul Joyce, was a longtime police officer in Boston who wrote a book, It Began with the Hasts. He was talking about how kids get into gangs in the first place and got out of gangs later on. And it was a fascinating look, because a lot of these young men, some of them came from great homes. It wasn't that there was anything wrong with their homes. Some of them came from tough homes. But there was a real, just being young and heedless and not really paying attention to what you were doing with yourself at 15 and 16, that of course later on, when these young men that did survive got to be 30, they had a whole different perspective. But what do you think about that whole situation of kids getting involved and the availability of guns? That was another point. It's so easy to get guns.
See, I think it's not just the kids, and I get it. It's not just the gun. There's an underlying issue. There's a systematic issue when we're dealing with poor people, and we want them to aspire, and the resources are not there.
Yeah.
So the data tells us, if we want to address the issue of violence, intervention must happen at multiple levels. We have to start working with families from that day that family, that baby, that seed is in the womb, to help them deal. The data is there. We are a system that we wait till something bad happens, and we want to invest That's great. We need to go up front and invest and start as early as preschool, making sure childcare, we all have it. And again, investing in the whole family, not just the individual. So it's great that we do that, yet the data tells us we have to go up front and we have to invest in programs that provide possibilities that lead to peace. It's 31 years since Lewis was killed. We're still blaming children. Yeah. We cannot continue to do that and expect something different. I have 3 grandchildren, and my youngest is 2. I don't want to be here 30 years later to then still blame the children.
But Clementine, there is progress. I don't know if the dramatically declining numbers of homicides is enough to suggest that, but you've achieved a lot and the city has made. You're nodding. Tell people, we started with what you did in the early days of the organization and continue to do. What are you doing today? And talk about this project that is not so far away in the future.
Yeah, I am a hopeful person. My foundation is peace. In the beginning, the middle, and the end, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. Peace, peace, peace. Yet, I'm not naive. Violence is still happening. I don't focus on the violence. Yes, we celebrate a lot of changes have been made. Yet, we're still focusing on the problem. And when you feed the problem, that's what manifests. When you feed the possibilities and peace, that's what manifests. So there's still a lot that we need to do collectively. 30 years later, we're building a center of healing, teaching, and learning in what the city of Boston has considered one of the most violent neighborhoods in the city. That's my backyard, Four Corners. I'm not walking away. People want to know, well, why are you building there? Well, why not? I want to build there to show, as a community member, as a resident of Four Corners, you don't dictate to me what my neighborhood is. You don't tell me that this is a bad place. I'm going to show you we are investing as a community for you to see the diversity of who we are in Four Corners. I am on a $25 million campaign for peace. I can say that without choking now. I really can say it to, again, create a center of healing, teaching, and learning, so that we really are focusing on who Boston is, who we are, and that communities of colors do want to invest in the revitalization of our community.
So when they come to that, people come to that center, what will they see and learn? What kind of resources?
Well, if you know who we are, we're at 15 Christopher Street right now, and the same resources on a much bigger scale. So we provide Peace Play in Urban Setting is a healing modality where, again, not everybody can do talk therapy. We are making sure that we work with those families who's re-entering, whose loved ones are re-entering the community from prison, to make sure that they don't end up on the other side of the gun. We are also making sure, working with our young people, calling them Generation Peace, giving them the tools that they need to begin to heal. And the greatest part of this is that it'll be a space that belongs to everybody in the community. It's not a church. It's not a police department. It's not a different institution. It's a space where the community is welcome. The other part, we're having a chapel. I'm Catholic. I used to go to Mass at 12 o'clock. Doors are locked now. So if I want to pray, I can't go any place to pray. So we're having a chapel, not a religious space, a chapel where people can come in, whether you're going to work and coming back from work, where you can stop and breathe.
Yeah.
Clementine, I went and saw the space, and it's really going to be incredible. 2 last things. We only have a couple of minutes. And by the way, at the celebration of 30 years, a week from Friday, go to ldbpeaceinstitute.org. Check it out. You'll be talking about that in the project.
We'll be talking about
addition
that, yes.
to celebrating what you've done. 2 things before you go. You called me one day several years ago and said, I'd like to come on your television show, Greater Boston, but I want to bring somebody with me. And the person you brought was Charles Bogues, who had been convicted of killing your son. And I was stunned, and people should Google it and watch the discussion. Well, About a year ago, you called me and asked me to watch a video. We only have a minute for this today. We'll discuss it more fully when you're back, hopefully in January. And I looked at the video. It was a video by Charles Bogues, the title of which is "I Did Not Kill Lewis Brown." And he goes in great detail with tons of legal documents through an argument that he makes that he is not the person, that he pled guilty because he had an incompetent lawyer. Like a lot of young black kids, either plead guilty, you're going to go to jail for life. He bought that. He didn't know. And by the way, his lawyer, it turns out, I don't want to go into this in great depth, was a state cop who had gotten in big trouble in a false conviction years before. When you saw I Didn't Kill Lewis Brown, what was your reaction?
Well, I knew he didn't kill Lewis Brown. I knew that the day he walked into court in 1996 as I was sitting there and they brought this young man in handcuffed. I looked at my then husband and I said, he didn't do it.
How'd you know he didn't do it?
God. It's literally, I think, again, you may think I'm crazy. This is what crazy looks like. Seriously. I'm telling you, God said he didn't. And there was a plea bargain. I did not agree with the plea bargain. There's a great press conference with all the men in their ties and white shirt. I did not agree because I did not want to come back 10 years later for him to say he was wrongly convicted. And this is where we are today.
So how does it feel now if you believe what you believe, and Charles Bogues says the same thing, I've spoken to him about it, that the person who is responsible for killing your son is out there?
It's in God's hands. I mean, I want a trial. I want a retrial. Some students at Northeastern Law School took it on.
Incredible work.
And they did credible work that showed that this young man was not the one whose bullet killed my son. He's not innocent. And that's where, again, with the system. His entire criminal record was dismissed until 1996. If you tell us who killed Lewis Brown, we're going to dismiss all your past record. That's what's wrong with our system. Yeah. Our criminal justice system is the only entity in this country that is not held accountable for the ongoing re-victimization and re-traumatization of the people that are in front of them, victims or victimizers. So here we are, 31 years later. The question is still, who killed Lewis Brown?
Before you go, can you spend a minute telling us a little bit more about your son?
Yeah. Everybody has a Lewis Brown. At 15, he ate me out of house and home. Literally. Yet, he was one of the most caring, quiet, and really understood what his purpose was. The day my son left that house, he asked me to fix him his favorite meal, fried chicken. I said, I don't feel like doing that. He says, you know what? I think you should fix me my favorite meal because this may be my last meal.
Oh, God.
Those were the last words. And I did fix him his favorite meal because he never asked for much. And when he asked for something 3 times, then he got it. So we all have a Lewis Brown, and that is my goal. The many Lewis Browns that are out there, regardless of the color of their skin, they are all our children. And that's my request to all of you. Embrace, even if they don't look like you, embrace. They are our children, for God's sake.
That's your request. Our request, Marjorie and me, is learn more about the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. Maybe go next Friday. It's ldbpeaceinstitute.org. Clementina Cherry, you're amazing. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
And congratulations on 30 years of incredible work.
Thank you.
We have been speaking with Chaplain Clementina Cherry. Her Louis D. Brown Peace Institute is celebrating, as Jim said, 30 years as an organization with a special reception dinner next Friday, December 20th. For information or reserve tickets, it's ldbpeaceinstitute.org. After a quick break, Goldust Orphan himself, Ryan Landry, joins us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Part of the GBH News Equity and Justice Unit.
We often talk about equity and justice in politics and government.
Senior digital producer Megan Smith.
But I think one thing we want to focus on is how communities are doing that themselves. We want to tell more community-focused stories about what people are doing in their own community to overcome those injustices that they see.
Elevating issues of equity and justice. GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Comcast, offering Xfinity Internet, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. More information at xfinity.com. And MSI United States, bringing reproductive health care and all the opportunity that comes with bodily autonomy to women in some of the most remote places in the world. More at msiunitedstates.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Here with us at the interview desk, painter, playwright, alleged tomato sauce influencer, Istanbul hair transplant expert, and former winner of the Elliott Norton Award for Sustained Excellence in Theater, the very clean-cut looking Ryan Landry. The latest iteration of his beloved annual Christmas show, Our Old Team is Going Tonight, by the way, produced with his team, the Gold Dust Orphans, is Rosemary's Baby Jesus, now playing at South Boston's Iron Wolf Theater. The Globe's Jaqueen, I think, Sinclair had this to say about his show, and hilarious extravaganza, the prowess and intellect of Landry, that would be him, and the Orphans is undeniable. I mean, really? For information, that's me. And to get tickets, go to the golddustorphans.org. Hello, Ryan Landry. Congratulations again.
Hello, James.
Well,
hello.
okay.
Hello, studio audience.
Hello.
Let me just say, Ryan,
Yes.
before we get to the spectacular show, any man who's losing his hair should go to Istanbul because you got the hair transplant.
Oh,
Look at his hair.
To talk about my hair transplant today, I want to sing about the Moona and the Juna and the Springa. But I also want to sing about my big, giant hit, Rosemary's Baby Jesus.
How's that going? It's been open about a week or something,
Well,
right?
I got to tell you, we're sold out all dates, but this coming Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the Saturday 4 o'clock show. You can get tickets for those, but everything else is sold out.
TheGolddustOrphans.org.
Or you can go to Ticket Taylor.
No. I mean, you do this every time. TheGolddustOrphans.org
It's easy to
remember. And don't be depressed. I mean, it is what it is.
I'm not
TheGolddustOrphans.org.
depressed, James.
Can I ask the most important question? We have a cameo part. A Globe story said we were sort of cameo local celebrities. I have a little part there. Be honest. What would you say is the reaction of the audience to the couple of minutes that Marjorie and I do in this play? It's puppets, but it's our voices. What would you say the reaction is?
Well, after the first performance, we learned our lesson and we blocked the exits. It's terrific. People love Jim.
They do?
Jim. Well, they love Marjorie.
They do.
Yeah.
That's the way it is
Yeah,
in the
well,
show, too.
I'm always getting even in Ryan's productions.
Yes,
it's a wonderful moment
Poor
for me.
James. I have to say, James, you are a
glutton for
hell of a
punishment.
good sport.
Thank you.
You really are, because I rip you to shreds.
Yes, you do.
So, should we play a little sound?
No, that's from the movie. I don't care about the movie.
Oh, you don't care about that? Okay.
What I care about is, can you try in a
That takes care of
coherent
that.
fashion in 30 seconds to explain to people who have never been to a Gold Dust Orphans show, we've been to tons of them, exactly what are they getting tonight or tomorrow night or next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday?
Well,
at
I don't
4?
want to give away the plot, although much of it runs the same line as the original movie, Rosemary's Baby, but I will say that you'll be very surprised to find out who Satan's child is, especially during this Christmas season.
Ooh.
So I'm not going to let that cat out of the bag. That was a hint.
We got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think people are going to see what they see when they come to our shows, which is total maximalism. We have over 250 costume changes we've got. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. I'm so proud of my work.
Well, you got rave reviews. I mean, you got two rave reviews in the Boston Globe, right? One from Terry Byrne and one from Joaquin Sinclair.
They love us. They love us.
Mispronouncing it. Can I also say, we make fun every time you're here of you, mostly, and then you make fun of me. Your players are as talented performers as anybody on any stage anywhere. These people are unbelievable. Do you pay these people?
Yes, I do. I pay them 4 times the amount of other theater companies.
You do?
Yes, I check, but then of course I demand the hardest work from them. They really have to go through it. We rehearse every single day for 6 weeks, and we don't stop.
Well, it really moves rather quickly, I would say. It is a fast-moving production, that's for sure.
I want to say to your drunken friends who you're going to drag along tonight,
yes,
we're going to have to split the group up. It's too packed tonight. So you two can sit in front, but the drunks have to sit behind you.
Are you casting aspersions on our hardworking staff?
No.
By the way, you can drink.
About Jamie and Aiden. That's
you can drink at the performance, and it is huge fun.
Can you drink?
Yes,
now,
you can.
The person
they have an intermission. You can drink some more.
The first person whose name I butchered, Sinclair, so I won't say the first name again, says it's not for everyone.
That's right.
Who would that be that it is not
People
for?
without a sense of humor.
Well, I would say people who are of the young variety.
What
they
are you
should probably go to
talking
another
about?
Christmas show, if
Why?
you know what I mean.
Oh, you mean
Like
children? No,
seven-
children. Do not bring your children.
Do not bring
no.
the 7-year-olds.
You're
No,
going
they should
to
stay
see
at home.
some things dangling that aren't exactly
Participles?
what
Well,
participles.
Dangling participles?
By the way, he is not
Do they
kidding.
sell those at Home Goods? Marjorie.
No, those were in your English class in high school. You weren't paying attention there, Ryan. but
Marjorie
it's okay.
Egan, the Queen of Talbots. I've
That's
always
right.
loved her.
That's right. That's right. You got me perfectly. Okay, Ryan,
We are
we're very
thrilled to
excited
be
about
coming
coming
tonight. A little nervous, but
yes,
we're thrilled.
And
Well, Margie remains unscathed. You, however, will be dressed as a giant jackass.
Thank you. Literally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that.
And I am. Thank you.
my God, the hair looks great. Great.
Stop talking
Well,
about
I'm
it.
sorry.
I'll
I'm
do that
sorry.
in
I'm very
January.
impressed. We've been speaking with Gold Dust orphan Ryan Landry.
Ryan Landry.
His latest production
Love
is
him.
now running at South Boston's Iron Wolf Theater called Rosemary's Baby Jesus. For more information and to book your tickets, go to thegolddustorphans.org. That's
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 4, the only ones with tickets left.
Those are the only dates.
Okay, great.
Everything
That's
else
right.
is sold out. Yeah.
After 1 o'clock news is our animal expert, Cy Montgomery. She's going to talk about little rats driving little rat cars and plants crying when they're not feeling well. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.
Thank you to everyone who gave during our recent membership drive. If you missed your chance to make a contribution during the drive, you still can. It's easy to do online at gbhnews.org. That's gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and Z-Tech Associates, a local IT services company providing on-site and remote IT support, cybersecurity, and IT compliance for Boston area businesses. Learn more at ztechnet.com. And Mass Health Connector, dedicated to expanding health insurance access to uninsured and low-income residents with Connector Care. More at mahealthconnector.org or 1-877-MA-ENROLL.
This is 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you.
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio. Much has been said about the impact of wind farms on the fish, the whales. What about the bottom dwellers? CAI has great new reporting about the researchers clanking around in the depths to test the adaptability of lobsters, scallops, and things like that. We'll talk with naturalist Cy Montgomery about this and the rats who love driving their tiny rat cars more than they like eating.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has made an unannounced stop in Iraq today. His trip to Baghdad comes amid a push to support a peaceful political transition in Syria.
It's very significant that Iraq, along with many other countries in the region and beyond, will make best efforts to support the Syrian people as they emerge from the Assad years.
This is Blinken's first trip to the Middle East since the ouster of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of Syrians gathered in the country's capital today for the first Friday prayer since rebel insurgents drove out the authoritarian president. NPR's Hadil al-Shalchi reports the mood was joyful at the mosque, considered to be the most famous shrine in Damascus.
Standing in the middle of the courtyard of Al Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, it's not only a day for Friday prayers, it's also a day of celebration. Thousands of Syrian men and women have gathered here today. Some of them say for security reasons they could never even enter it before the fall of President Bashar al-Assad, and this is their first time. The Imam calls on people to celebrate and to leave the mosque in a calm and orderly fashion.
That's NPR's Hadil al-Shalchi reporting from Damascus. An American citizen who was among thousands of prisoners freed from Syrian prisons after the fall of the Assad regime has been handed over to U.S. forces. The 29-year-old man from Missouri was held for 7 months in Damascus after being arrested for illegally entering the country. Some colleges in the United States are quietly preparing for President-elect Donald Trump's second term. A handful of schools are advising international students who are planning to leave the U.S. for the holidays to get back to campus by the middle of January. Kurt Carapezza from member station GBH in Boston reports.
Most colleges aren't saying much, but since the election, some have reached out to international students, urging them to return to campus before January 20th to avoid being disrupted or delayed by any new immigration restrictions. Harvard contacted its international students this week, suggesting those traveling overseas for the holidays budget time ahead of Martin Luther King Day, which coincidentally is also Inauguration Day. In his first term, Trump issued a travel ban targeting several majority Muslim countries and heightened visa scrutiny. There are no new proposals yet, but on the campaign trail, Trump promised even stricter policies. For NPR News, I'm Kurt Carapezza in Boston.
Stocks are trading lower on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was down 99 points. This is NPR News in Washington.
And from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. The consulting firm McKinsey will pay $650 million to resolve a federal criminal probe into its work advising Purdue Pharma on how to increase sales of the opioid painkiller OxyContin. Authorities announced the agreement a short time ago at the Moakley Federal Courthouse in Boston. Prosecutors allege McKinsey knowingly conspired with Purdue to, quote, aid and abet the misbranding of prescription drugs. U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts Joshua Levy says it's about real people.
This is a case about the thousands and thousands of people who've lost their lives to opioid addiction over the last many years, and the family members that leave in their wake.
Authorities say the resolution marks the first time a management consulting firm has been held accountable for helping to fuel the opioid crisis. Levy says other consulting firms should take note.
If a consulting firm conspires with a client to engage in criminal conduct, the fact that you're an outside consultant will not protect you.
Authorities say McKinsey also agreed to consider the legal, ethical, and social responsibility aspects of its work with clients going forward. Police in Lowell say a 2-year-old girl is hospitalized with life-threatening injuries after she was struck by a truck in that city late yesterday. Witnesses say several bystanders, including a nurse, came to the child's aid before EMS arrived. She was rushed to a Boston hospital. They say the truck driver remained on the scene and the investigation into that crash continues. A sunny but cold end to your week. Highs in the 30s this afternoon. The Geminid meteor shower peaks tonight. Lows in the teens and single digits. Sunny tomorrow and Sunday. Highs again in the 30s. 20 degrees in Boston. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Houston Brownie, I am Marjorie Yeagan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Thank you very much.
That's it?
Yes, hello.
That's all you have to
Hello,
say?
Jim. Hello, Jim.
I think you're supposed to say who we are. Who are we again?
I did. I said we're Boston Public Radio. Yep.
Yeah, but who are we?
I said I did say
Oh, you
Jim,
did?
Brian, Marjorie. Yeah,
You're
sure.
Marjorie Egan.
The segment's just started. You're already criticizing
I'm not
me,
criticizing.
Jim.
I'm just
Criticizing
asking.
me. I said it.
You know why? Because I had
Hi.
a crouton stuck in
you
my
had a
cheek
crouton
when
stuck
that
in your
happened.
cheek? Okay.
We're joined now on Zoom. I know who she is by naturalist author Cy Montgomery. Her latest book is this is a fabulous book, by the way, if you haven't read it. What the Chicken Knows: A New Appreciation, my first appreciation of the world's most familiar bird. Hello, Cy Montgomery. How are you?
I am great to be talking to both of you.
We're thrilled to have you too.
So, Cy, this story really upset me about the wind farms and the lobsters. It was done by one of our colleagues, Eve Zuckoff from WCAI down the Cape. Tell us about the lobsters and other bottom dwellers and the wind farms.
Yeah, this was a piece of very good reporting.
It was.
We already have excellent evidence that noise in the ocean is messing up animals like whales and other marine mammals. We know that noise in the ocean can penetrate much deeper than even light can in the ocean. So the animals who live in deep places are depending on hearing, and yet their hearing is being messed up by these noises. But before this, no one was really looking at how creating the infrastructure that we need to build wind farms, how this was going to affect animals like lobsters and scallops and squid, for which there's a fishery in the very areas where these things are being constructed. And it's pretty interesting the way that they're trying to figure this out. They're not necessarily saying like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. They're saying we don't know how this is going to affect these animals. So essentially they're like putting Fitbits on animals, trying to figure out how this is affecting them. The noises that happen in construction are incredibly loud. And as you know, as a diver, if you were underwater scuba diving while like a seismic air gun was being blasted, it would damage your hearing really badly. A seismic air gun is louder than the loudest rocket ever recorded.
We have, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have, I don't know if this will,
sound.
This may not convey it at all, but here is the sound. Well, it's aggravating anyway.
But here's the thing.
I mean, I don't know.
It sounded from Eve's reporting as if they're doing this over and over and over
They
and
are.
over and over. Can't they do it like 3 times and get some idea about how it's almost like
Well, they're trying to replicate what happens when they're constructing a wind farm.
But do we have to replicate it that many times, I guess is my question. It seems like it's almost torturing the lobsters, you know?
I know a lot of the scientific research that people do, you kind of feel like, okay, you got the evidence that this is no good.
Enough already.
But here's the problem. I mean, I gotta say, it's important to see what happens here, particularly since, I mean, these are animals that we fish for and we eat, or those of us who eat fish eat.
Do you eat fish? Wait, do you eat fish?
I would eat a dead fish if I found it in the street, and I would eat
like sea kill. What?
Well, right, a sea kill, and I'll eat oysters because they don't even have a brain.
They don't
even know, and so they don't mind. So
okay,
there
my
you have it.
staff is making fun of me for warning
What are
about
they saying?
torturing.
They're your coworkers.
lobsters.
They're not your staff, by the way.
Okay, my coworkers.
Yeah.
Since we boil lobsters on a regular basis, I do not.
Rather
boil
give them a headache than
lobsters.
boil a lobster.
Yeah, rather give them a headache than boil them or cut them open as they used to work in the restaurant I lived in when they were alive. It was horrible.
In this CAI report, which I found really interesting, the different sort of, I don't know if they're crustaceans, whatever they are, bottom dwellers react differently. Squid, or I think that's the plural, apparently okay with the pounding. Scallops, apparently not. They seal up, which is dangerous. Lobsters, I think the jury is still out. So obviously, Jim, it's a species by species kind of thing. But I guess if they determine that there are certain species, let's say, for example, scallops and maybe lobsters, that are having a really negative reaction, what do they do then? I'm not quite clear. What do they do?
Well, sometimes you can mitigate these things. They mentioned an underwater blanket of bubbles that kind of can absorb that sound. But it depends on how different animals hear and also how different animals learn. The squid, at first, the squid hated the sound. But then they learned, oh gosh, this doesn't mean that danger is necessarily approaching.
Incredible.
For some animals like whales, and I know this wasn't that research on whales, but there's been some amazing research on whales, including narwhals, the ones that have the big tusk that they used to think was a unicorn. I mean, that just makes these big-brained mammals dive deep, 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 deep. And while they're trying to get away from that sound, of course, they can't be feeding. They're using up all kinds of energy. It's really bad for them. They also know that it makes their hearts race with terror, just like it would ours. And we do know that other noises, like Navy sonar, leads to whale strandings. It leads to decompression sickness. They can actually get the bends. Whales can get the bends because they are going down so fast, which was, I didn't realize that before. And we know that a lot of sound is a big problem. What we have to find out is there any way that we can mitigate this? But are we going to mitigate it? That's my question. Because Navy sonar still is going on. These giant ocean-going, they're almost like skyscrapers. They're ocean-going skyscrapers. They make a ton of noise. They're still going back and forth. They actually strike and kill whales. So even if we know it does harm, my question is, when are we going to do something about it? And when are we going to put teeth into the laws that say we should?
Can I ask you an embarrassing question? I think it's going to be embarrassing for me. Unlike Marjorie, I eat lobster, and I actually enjoy lobster. And I'm lucky enough, the man who was at least temporarily in the mouth of the whale, and his captain, who is a friend of ours here, Josiah Mayo, every year when I'm in Provincetown, are kind enough to give me a couple of lobsters, some of which are as big as 5 or 6 pounds, which means really big. I have no idea where the heart of the lobster is, nor do I know what it looks like. Do you?
Yeah, sort of. In high school, which of course was very recent for all three of us, we got to dissect a crawdad. And crawdads are pretty much like a lobster, so I do know what their heart looks like, and it's identifiable as a heart. Unlike some animals, you look at their heart and you can't figure out what it is. A lot of animals, you look at their brain, you can't figure out what it is. It looks like some kind of vegetable that would grow on Mars. But the good thing, I don't eat lobsters myself,
I'm sure.
But maybe it will make you feel better to know that lobsters would eat you, that they, being bottom dwellers, if you were lying dead on the bottom of the ocean, they would eat you too.
I want you to know if I was lying dead on the bottom of the ocean, I wouldn't care that much if they were eating me. By the way, it's Michael Packard, for those who don't know.
Yeah, Michael Packard.
And by the way, David Abel's film called In the Whale.
It's great.
David Abel, former Globe reporter, environmental
wonderful.
reporter, did a beautiful job. This film, the short film, hour plus, called In the Whale.
He's done so many wonderful films. The Inundation District about the seaport and stuff, that was a wonderful
fabulous,
thing too.
Yeah, he's really talented.
But let's move on to something that's much more fun. These rats that have learned how to drive teeny tiny rat cars. They're driving around in these teeny tiny cars, and they love it.
They totally love it. And they tested to see whether they like driving the cars or whether they're just driving the car to get a Fruit Loop, which they love. So they set this up to see how important is the driving experience for the rats. And by the way, they've got some pretty sophisticated cars. Some of them are like Teslas. They're fantastic. And you can get them for your home rat, by the way, of which more later.
Yeah, for those who have home rats. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, some do have home rats.
I know they
Some do.
Did Zoe send you the footage of Kronk and Cosco, these two pet rats?
That are driving the cars?
Thankfully, she did not.
They have their home car.
They do.
They've completely redone their entire apartment to make it rat-friendly. It's like a rat gymnasium. It's really wonderful. And these rats, they can drive the car. They could parallel park in Boston better than us. Absolutely. But anyway, this research that just came out shows that even if you take longer to drive in your car to the Fruit Loops store than it would to just walk a quick distance, 2 out of 3 rats tested would rather drive. It's not just about the Fruit Loops. It's about the journey. They're so wise. They're just so Buddhist, you know.
They are. That's right.
They really love the journey. And they learn so quickly. They enjoy learning it, too, just like a person. And what this shows us is the importance of anticipating something that you love. It shows us that hope is important. And I read about previous experiments which were horrible. I think you probably read that as well in the same article, which can't be done now because they're morally despicable. But people were drowning rats, but those rats who temporarily got rescued and then were stuffed back in the water would fight longer to survive by hours and hours and hours because they did not see their situation as hopeless. So they would keep swimming, fighting for life for hours and hours and hours, because they felt that there was a chance they would be saved. And that's an important lesson for us, that hope and anticipation really, really matters. And maybe you don't like what's going on right now, but you have Christmas to look forward to, and your birthday, and Easter, and your daughter's wedding. And, you know, that just shows that other animals have this same mental setup as we do.
So does that mean the rats are hoping that it's 4 years from now? Is that what you're saying or not? You know, can I get back to the base? I have to say this story is unbelievable for the reasons you mentioned. My analysis was like yours, but much more simple because I don't obviously have your experience. These rats seem to me, at least temporarily, to be choosing joy over food, which is that is really incredible to me.
Yes. Well, I know. Well, sometimes food is joy, right?
Well, I know,
but an experience that just shows that, you know, a great experience that you love
totally
having.
Right.
And looking forward to that great experience when you think of how much it means to us. And it also shows you the evolutionary value of that adaptation, the adaptation that hope gives us, that anticipation gives us, that it's baked into us as an organism, as a vertebrate. And probably invertebrates have this experience as well. I mean, I don't know that my octopus friends looked forward to the next time I would see them, but I do know that when I opened the lid to Octavia's tank, she came out expecting that we would play because she would turn bright red with excitement. And she would come up and she would greet me and we would play for an hour. And I don't know if she looked forward to it in the same way that I did. I think I had to have loved her more. But I think it shows one of the reasons that we exist is to experience joy.
You're unbelievable. You know, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I have 2 things. One, very, very quickly, if I may. I meant to text you. I bumped into somebody the other day, a woman who said to me that her favorite book of her lifetime was Soul of an Octopus. I should have told you that. And Jamie, who you may know is Marjorie's staff person, just typed us a note, and this is a good question for you. So is there something called rat road rage, Si? If they're so similar to us, for example, do they keep crowbars in the trunk?
Teeny tiny ones.
And do they have their mother's rat's ashes in the trunk like I do mine?
Like you do.
Exactly.
I heard about that,
So,
Jim.
okay, fine.
Well, you like to keep her close.
Exactly.
I'm taking this story out of order because I am so fascinated by
Which
this
one?
That plants can be heard crying.
Oh, I love this.
When they're not doing well or deprived of water or
We
under
have sound of
some
that
other
too, you
kind of
know.
stress. Yeah.
Yes, listen to
Here's
this.
the sound of a tomato plant that hasn't gotten, it's not a voice, it's like ultrasonic clicks. Here's the sound of that tomato plant. There it is. There it is. It's clicking.
It's clicking, yeah.
Okay.
Wait, that may be clear. Did you say it's not a voice? Were some people expecting the
it's not
tomato plant to
talk.
speak?
I just want to clarify that. Because I was wondering, gee, how can the plants talk? But then I realized it's clicks.
Water.
But
water. That's what tomato plants sound.
Yeah. But so can I hear these clicks or not?
You can't, but they can be, they're too high for us to hear.
Yeah.
But your dog might, well, from heaven, I'm sure your dog can hear it. But a living dog can probably hear some of it. And moths definitely can hear it. And this is so interesting, why they click. I mean, they think it's created by bubbles bursting, sort of like when our joints creak.
Oh.
They don't know that the plants are screaming like you or I might scream, help me, or like other animals under attack will often scream,
That's the fly.
hoping to call the predator of their predator. That's why they do that. But we don't know that the plants are doing this with intentionality, just like our joints crack without us intending the joints to say something. But other animals know about this because plants and insects have been on Earth for a very, very long time and have had eons and eons to figure each other out. And when moths have to make the most important decision of their lives, which is where am I going to lay my precious eggs, the one time I'm going to do it, I got to pick the right place. You don't want to pick a plant who is all desiccated and is going to die, because when your caterpillars hatch out, they're going to be hungry and they'll want some delicious, juicy thing to eat, not some desiccated, not nutritious, crummy, dying plant. So they will avoid the plants that are thirsty.
Isn't that
and
amazing?
pick a quiet plant. This is really absolutely...
It is amazing.
Fascinating. I mean, it could be that plants have some kind of intentionality in that we do know that trees will signal each other. We know they signal each other when they are under attack. They chemically signal other trees when they're under attack. And we also
What's the signal? Run for your life? What do they say? What does a tree say to a tree? Seriously.
It's a chemical signal,
well,
Jen.
it's signaling the way that a smell is a signal. It's not saying words, but other trees apparently understand it, and they pump themselves full of chemicals that will repel the insect that is attacking them. And we also know and this is all kinds of really fascinating scientific research. I mean, Suzanne Simard wrote this wonderful book about trees, which is also an autobiography. It was called Finding the Mother Tree. That trees will also help out other trees, particularly if they are related. So let's say you are, a tree that's not doing well. If your mother tree is nearby, she will send out her roots, or the hyphae attached to her roots, the fungal partner of her roots, to help you and shunt more nutrients to her children. So it's not impossible that the plants are calling out for help. I mean, we do know some plants do that. But, we found that the plants who make these sounds are, they range from cactus to corn to Cabernet grapes. All kinds of them do, but plants are a whole separate kingdom. So just because trees do it, communicate with each other, that doesn't mean that other plants do. But I think this is such an exciting time to be alive, because we're just finding out that the world is so animated.
So, Sai, before you go, you explained things so beautifully. We read a story, and I think we're about to see photographs, which we have neither Marjorie nor I have seen so far, of orcas wearing salmon as hats, essentially. Can we put one of those photographs up as, well, it doesn't really tell you that much there. Theoretically, they swim around, not theoretically, they swim around.
There's the salmon. There's the salmon right there.
There is a salmon.
Right on his head.
Where?
So,
yeah, look at that.
Well, that is not
That's
real.
Fake.
That
okay.
is just, that is, whoever did that on Marjorie's staff, that is pathetic. Okay, so we got the concept. Well, there it is. So they swim around with I don't know. They swim around with a salmon. It's sort of like a hat. What's that about?
Well, this was first documented in 1987, and all of a sudden they started seeing orcas swimming around with dead salmon on their forehead. And why would you do that? Well, why would you swallow a live goldfish because you belong to a fraternity? You know, why would you suddenly want to wear fishnet stockings, which are very uncomfortable? Why would you want to put nail extensions on that break all the time? You know, why would you want to eat Tide Pods, which apparently kids do? It's so interesting that these animals have fads just like we do. And the article that I read noted that this part of the brain that's associated with language, memory, and emotion is more developed in orcas than it is in humans. So why shouldn't they have fads? So the fad came and then it went. And then fairly recently, a few months ago, someone photographed an orca doing this same thing. And they think the fad might be returning, just like fads do for humans. But it just shows, too, that, you know, when they have a lot of leisure time, and right now there's actually a lot of salmon out there for orcas to eat in this one area. Some orcas just eat fish. Some orcas just eat marine mammals. Some, you know, it's kind of a cultural thing. But in this area, there's a lot to eat. They have leisure time. They just start doing, like, funny things to kid each other, I guess, and just have fun with it. Lots of animals like to play with toys in different ways. And what do you make your toys out of when you can't order it on the internet?
Salmon,
well, there's a dead fish.
Of course. Can we see a photograph of that one more? That is amazing to me. Can we, the real one, not the one we photoshopped or whatever. Can we see that one more time just to get a sense?
I thought they were playing salmon baseball, something like that.
Let's see. That one. That is truly.
Yeah,
that is really. By the way, Cy, a tribute to you by one of our colleagues. I don't know who wrote this. When all the rest of us, meaning our whole team here, are complaining about being tapped out every day, only Cy Montgomery would say, "This is such an exciting time to be alive." It so captures who you are. It really, and I think all of us echo that compliment. You're amazing. Cy, it's wonderful to see you. If we don't see you before Christmas, you and Howard enjoy it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you two have the best holiday, and we'll talk in 2025.
We will. The great Cy Montgomery.
Thank you, Cy.
We love her.
We've been speaking with naturalist and author Cy Montgomery. Your forthcoming book is What the Chicken... It's out now.
It's out.
It's not forthcoming. It is here. What the Chicken Knows, a new appreciation of the world's most familiar bird. Cy, thanks again. After a quick break, we are opening the lines back up to you on the subject of Christmas music. Your favorite and your least favorite Christmas songs, and why Grandma should look out for the reindeer. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Moth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, the state's top federal prosecutor is announcing the resolution of a case involving OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma. 2 schools in the North Middlesex district are set to close after a budget override failed to pass. And closing out a week of reporting on active aging with pickleball, a sport popular with older people. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com. And Bunker Hill Community College, now registering for online winter session. A 3-week session starting January 2nd, designed to help students catch up on classes and get ahead. bhcc.edu/winter.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan, Jim Browdy. Thanks, everybody. Live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH. There's sort of a holiday feeling in the library today, which is great. I just want to say before I introduce this topic,
yes.
You've heard on the radio, if you listen every day, Marjorie trashing me every day. Oh, white versus colored lights again. Oh, fake versus real tree again.
Moldy
Tipping
chestnuts.
again. This morning when one of our colleagues, one of the people who works for Marjorie apparently, when one of our colleagues, well, what do you think about Christmas songs? I said, no. What'd you say, Marjorie?
I said, I want to play Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Okay, fine. So it's the season of moldy old BPR chestnuts. So till the end of the show, we're opening phone and text lines to get your thoughts on holiday music. I wanted to do movies. Marjorie insisted on music. She got music. And the number is 877-301-8970 to call or text. What is the music that makes the holiday season feel truly festive for you? Do you prefer the timeless classics like Nat King Cole, who I just adore, Eartha Kitt, or do you enjoy newer, fresher takes like Mariah Carey, that sort of thing on the holiday genre? On the flip side, what holiday songs do you truly detest in a way that makes your blood run cold? That's the Chipmunks.
That's the Chipmunks. That tops all the list of the worst ones.
Exactly. So we have some music loaded up.
We only played a little bit of it, though.
I know we're going to play more.
Thing.
The number is 877-301-8970. Why don't you take over because you're so excited about this? Go ahead.
Okay, well, let's start with the Chipmunks. This is Christmas Don't Be Late by Alvin and the Chipmunks. Here it is.
So horrible.
Time for chip. Okay, I guess that's enough.
That's enough.
Okay,
Wasn't
that's
one of the
enough
Chipmunks from Worcester? Am I right about that? Can you check that out? I think one of the Chipmunks from Worcester.
Attleboro.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. John knows everything.
Okay.
And then in honor of you, Jim, we're going to play Adam Sandler's Hanukkah song if you are perhaps celebrating
This is one of the funniest
Hanukkah
songs ever.
and not celebrating Christmas. Here is his 1994 song for all the Jewish kids out there.
Not just for Jewish kids.
Feeling deprived during the holiday season.
Hanukkah, festival of lights. Instead of one day of presents, we have 8 crazy nights.
I think it's a pretty funny
That
song.
song is a rat. Then he does, this person is half a Jew, this person is a quarter of a Jew. He goes through all the famous actors.
Look how happy Marjorie
I
is
love
right
that
now.
song. I think it's absolutely a riot.
877-301-8970. We'll try to play your choice. Tell us what your favorite is, your least favorite. And by the way, if you're not into Christmas or holiday music at all, let us know that too, and we can have a discussion. 877-301-8970.
Chris on the North Shore says, read Christmas carols. Every time I hear that dreadful Wings song, I hope Sir Paul hears my silent cursing. John was the talented one. In fact, Chris from the North Shore, you'll be happy to know, we do have
listen to Marjorie.
that
She's like a DJ.
dreadful Wings song.
Okay, let's hear it.
Can we play that, please, John?
I never even heard this. I guess I have.
Terrible.
Hey, that's not. The Paul's voice
It's
never
terrible.
sounded better. Okay, 877-301-8970. Can we take some loser phone callers on this? Can
Absolutely.
We get, okay, fine.
Sam
Let's go
in
to
Rhode
Sam
Island.
in Rhode Island. What's up, Sam?
Hello.
Hello.
I just want to say I really, really hate Mariah Carey's All I Want for
so
Christmas
do
Is
I.
You. But I really love this song called Christmas in Killarney.
Wait, go ahead, keep going. I love which? What do you love?
It's something like Christmas in Killarney. And my dad always used to play it. And I think it's a great Christmas song.
And why?
I don't
who
know
does
that
that?
one.
I don't know it either. Who does that?
I don't even know.
All the Irish people.
Okay. Let's get back to Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey, I think her song is the biggest selling Christmas song.
It is.
Some of all time.
Top 10, number
Whatever.
1 according to Billboard. And
Okay, why do you hate it, Sam?
I don't know. I hear it everywhere. I feel like the lyrics are kind of nonsensical. Like what do you mean last year you gave someone your heart and the very next day they gave it away? Like, who are you giving your heart?
Yeah, but Sam, this is coming from a guy who says your favorite song is I Love Christmas in Killarney, and you don't know who did it or what it is. So other than
not
that,
at all.
you're all over it. Okay, and by the way, one of our coworkers, was that Hannah who just spoke in my ear? Said that's the wrong song you hate. It's Wham's song that you hate. Can I make a suggestion, Sam? Why don't you recoup? Go home or wherever you are. Think about this a little while and call us back.
Okay.
Sam, thank you. That was an excellent call, nevertheless.
Should we play a little of Mariah Carey, the correct one?
I guess, yeah,
Here
sure.
it is. Here's Mariah Carey.
The Chipmunks, every year I try to avoid it, and you broke a 4-year streak. That was Marjorie who did that.
Alvin and the
Sean,
Chipmunks.
thank you for the call. And here's another person. Okay. That was Marjorie. An anonymous texter says, I'm in the minority, but I do love Dominic the Donkey. I love anything and everything Italian. That must have been Jamie. Do we have that, which is maybe one of the worst 2 songs ever? Do we have the Dominic the Donkey?
I
We
don't think so.
Hey, jingity jing. It's Dominic the donkey. Jingity
By the way, that is, what's the word for when something is ethnically discriminated? That is so gross. So gross.
It's a slur against the Italians.
That's what I was trying to say. Can we take some calls?
Yeah, we can take some calls.
You're the most jubilant you've been like in months.
I love listening
Why
to
don't you
this
play a
Christmas
song
music.
that you love then? Why don't you play it?
Okay, let me.
You like Nat King Cole?
I like Nat King.
Do we have Nat King Cole?
Who doesn't like
what
Nat
does he
King
sing
Cole?
again?
But here's the one I like better than Nat
Forget
King
what
Cole.
Jim said. Good.
This is Reindeer Grandma. This is a story of the grandmother celebrating Christmas,
really
getting
depressing.
drunk on eggnog and stumbling outside into the snow. Here it is.
Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
It's not even, I mean, it's horrible. It's not even funny horrible.
It's a
Look at
riot.
Marjorie. She's dancing. The grandma got run
You can say there's no such thing as Santa.
Okay, Marjorie.
But as for me and Grandpa, we believe.
Okay, enough of that. Now, are you allowed
Grandma's
to
got
play?
reindeer tracks on her back because she collapses in the snow after too
Is
much
it
eggnog.
inappropriate to play Baby It's Cold Outside? Remember the thing a couple years ago?
I thought
about
there
how
was too
inappropriate
much made of that, frankly.
I mean, because of the time it was made in, and it was
Yes.
yeah, it was like a predatory thing. Some people said, but-
predatory thing.
Yeah, okay,
I
fine.
didn't see it that way.
Okay,
but
she
maybe
didn't see
I'm
it that
wrong.
way. No, you didn't see it that way because you were too busy listening to Alvin and the Chipmunks to concentrate on the topic.
Okay.
To see.
Do we have Baby It's Cold Outside?
I don't know. Do we have Baby It's Cold Outside?
That's on a lot of
Maybe
lists.
we should have prepared for this segment rather than just saying, "Excuse me, do we have Baby It's Cold? Do we have Baby It's Cold Outside, John, or not?" Good. Okay, let's take a phone call. We are really losing our bearing here.
Okay.
Let's go to Patrice.
Patrice in New Hampshire.
Hi, Patrice. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I think we're good. Thanks.
I'm calling my favorite song. There is by Bad Religion, any of them, but God Rest You Merry Gentlemen,
Yeah.
or Heart
That's
to
a good
Herald
one.
Angels Sing. But it has to be by Bad Religion. It's rock and roll.
Okay.
It's way out of my age range. The least favorite would be Feliz Navidad.
By Jose
Overplayed.
Feliciano?
Jose Feliciano.
Yeah.
Feliz
I'm sorry.
Navidad.
I like him too.
Yeah,
I liked him when I was a
Navidad.
kid.
Yeah, I don't, it doesn't do a huge amount for me. But who did God Bless You, Merry Gentlemen, that you liked? Who's the artist or who are the artists?
Bad Religion is the name of the
okay.
band.
Okay, well, we don't have that either. Patrice, we're going to try to play as few songs as you guys want to hear as is humanly possible. I think most shows do the opposite, but we don't know. Patrice, those were excellent choices. Thank you very much for the call. You're still smiling. You're not even just saying anything, and you're smiling. Okay, play something else that you either love or you hate.
Here's one, and this is absolutely true. The best Christmas album ever is the original soundtrack from A Charlie Brown Christmas.
That's pretty great.
That
That's
is a
great.
great one. I mean, who doesn't love to play that? And I love that show. It's such a great show. A half hour long. It's terrific.
We playing that?
We don't have that.
Okay, fine. Okay, why don't we do this? Let me explain to you how you do a radio show. You pick one that we do have and say, why don't we play that? So what we're going to do...
I think we played them all. Oh, we
we
haven't played Paul McCartney's 1979
we
song,
actually
Wonderful
did.
Christmas.
We did.
No,
do
we
that.
did? I thought we did the Wham
Okay, so
one.
maybe we should just wrap things up 20 minutes early or whatever. No, we're not, of course. We're just kidding.
Okay.
Where are we going next? What other person has a song we're not going to play for them? Who's that? That would be Oleg. Is that how I say your name? You're in Roslindale. Welcome to the show. Hi.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to talk. I'm Ukrainian originally, and I wanted to talk briefly about the song "Carol of the Bells," which is actually based on a Ukrainian folk song that's usually sung at New Year's.
Okay.
And, so the original title of the song is Shadrach, which means the generous one, and it's basically a song wishing you, like all the best in the new year. That all your animals, are productive and your crops are beautiful and so on in the new year. And so I remember as a child during the Ukraine, we used to sing it, and my grandmother and they usually had of children who go around the village and sing carols for older people.
Hey, Oleg.
And then I was very surprised.
Oleg, do me a favor.
Maybe he
Since
can
there's no way
sing
we have that.
a few
Can
bars.
you say the children sing it? Can you hearken
you-
back
yeah,
to your
can you
childhood?
say a few-
Sing
say
us
a
a
few?
few bars there, Oleg.
The Ukrainian?
Sure, sing it in Ukrainian. That'd be beautiful.
Щедрик, щедрик, щедрівочка, прилетіла, сівочка.
Very good.
That was actually
that
great.
Was very good.
That was really great.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
We're really glad you called. Thank you very much, and happy holiday to you, too. That was pretty beautiful. 877-301-8970. Why don't you
Dan
sing
from Dorchester
one of your favorites?
is making a bad joke.
What did he say?
He's saying, I'm surprised Marjorie's favorite isn't moldy chestnuts on an open fire.
What's the name of that song? Is that called
Chestnuts
Christmas?
roasting
No,
on
it's
an
not the
open
name of it. Is it the Christmas song?
Christmas song.
We have it?
Oh,
we
we
have
have-
it.
We have another Nat King Cole, too.
We do?
Yes.
Oh, Baby, It's
Singing
Cold?
the controversial Baby, It's Cold Outside.
Okay, let's hear that.
Sorry
Whatever.
about that.
Okay, fine.
Do you think that was a predatory song?
I was, when I first heard it, I understood why people were upset about it. And then I sort of had the feeling, I'm going to dance on this one, that you had, that it was a long time ago when it was written and it wasn't meant that way. However, if you listen to the words, it's a little troubling.
He's trying to convince her to stay.
He is.
And she doesn't, and she kind of
She's
wants
not
to
crazy
stay.
about staying.
No, she wants to stay, but she's
Well-
afraid that she's going to get in trouble, because in those days you weren't supposed to stay
Oh,
over
that's what it was,
at a
yeah.
gentleman's house. This
Okay,
is back
fine.
in the 50s or something like that, maybe even the 40s. Anyway.
You know what another problem is? We don't have any Bing Crosby song. You know what the problem is?
White
Bing Crosby,
Christmas?
wasn't he beating up his kids or something?
I think he put them in the closet.
He did. No, I'm serious. He was like a child
he wasn't
abuser.
he wasn't a good father.
What was
but
that
he did
song?
have-
That was the biggest.
you know what we call him?
No.
Crooner.
We do?
He's a crooner.
Okay, fine. Now, what was the name of that song?
White Christmas.
White Christmas
Yeah.
was like the biggest Christmas song until Mariah Carey did whatever that thing
I would
is
say
called.
that actually Bing Crosby's White Christmas is probably better, even though he was not good to his children.
So one last thing that I'm sure we don't have is Darlene Love, who we've had on
Oh,
the show,
yes.
who used to do that song every year on David Letterman until he was canceled. We don't have that either, right? Okay, good. Okay. Okay. Okay, we don't.
It was Christmas Baby, Please
Do
Come
we have
Home.
David Letterman talking? Do we have anything related to that song? Nothing.
We should tell people
Okay.
though what the list, the 10 best songs for Christmas according to
whom?
Billboard. According
Oh,
to Billboard.
Billboard. Okay, what are they?
It's
Read 'em.
Mariah Carey. She's
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
Darlene Love is number two. Nat
What's her song called? I love that song.
Christmas Baby, Please Come Home.
It's a great song. Go ahead.
Nat King Cole singing the Christmas song is number 4.
We
We
actually
just
had
played
that,
some of
yeah.
that. Wham! Last Christmas. I don't get that.
That's what Hannah was just
Do
talking
you
about.
get that? I don't get that.
Go ahead, I don't need to
Bing
get it.
Crosby's White Christmas is 5th.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen, your buddy, comes in 9th with Santa
very-
Claus is
very
coming
close
to
to
town.
that.
And on the worst list,
Please.
Alvin and the Chipmunks tops the worst list. No one likes that. Can we hear a little bit of that
Sure,
again one
play
more
it
time?
3 or
Alvin
4
and the
more times
Chipmunks?
because we have it.
Alvin! Alvin!
That's the part I loved, actually. I laughed so hard when I was little.
Screaming at the Chipmunks.
Maybe I wasn't even little, which is really the
Yeah.
problem.
And then
Okay.
second worst, of course,
Oh
we
my
also
God.
play Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, but that's a
Yeah.
pretty funny one
Yeah.
too. And then this new song, I don't know it, the Christmas Shoes.
Yeah. we
Yeah,
don't have
that's supposed to be pretty bad.
Okay.
And apparently, Jessica and Ashley Simpson's version of The Little Drummer Boy, which is a great Christmas carol, is horrible.
That actually
It
is
came
a
in
fairly good
4th on the
song.
list, and 5th was New Kids on the Block, Funky, Funky Xmas.
Did you figure out? Oh, we have
we do
Darlene
have
Love.
Darlene Love.
Oh, my God.
Okay, she's number 2 on the best list.
Forgetting that, actually. It was on very
Margie's
short
staff
notice.
is killing it today, Jim.
No, they really.
But you
they're
know something?
incredible.
These are both in Love Actually, aren't they?
They are.
Darlene Love singing.
Can we talk about that for 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Talk about Baby It's Cold Outside. Love Actually, which is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie.
Is a very controversial movie.
Very controversial.
And I assume that's because of the affairs? Or
Well,
what?
because, no, it's very sexist. You know, these women are little princesses waiting to be
That's true.
rescued by the guy. I mean,
So why don't you weigh in on this?
I like it anyway. I
Yeah.
have my daughters think it's awful, but my son-in-law, he and I are on the same page
Oh,
on
good.
Love Actually. So
Okay,
there
fine.
you go. We watch it together.
Okay, good. Now let's go to Ames.
What do you think about Love Actually?
I actually like Love Actually.
You know what I like a little bit better at Christmas, though?
What?
Bridget Jones' Diary.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And
But
Chevy-
she's the woman who had like the
Chevy
head
Chase's-
transplant. Have you seen?
So
no,
what?
I'm serious. Have you seen her?
It's not so bad as it was. She's sort of grown into
You would
the
not
head.
recognize. I don't think she is a really talented person.
She is. Well, she's in a
You
Hollywood.
Look totally
yeah,
fine.
she's a Hollywood actress. She can't get a
Fine.
job after you're 40 unless you're Meryl Streep. That's why she
Yeah.
did it.
Oh, Nicole
And the other
Kidman's
one-
not getting any jobs.
The other one, well, I mean,
Meryl Streep's
do you
not
think-
getting
you
any
think-
jobs.
Do you think Nicole Kidman is au naturel? I don't think so,
Well,
Jim.
she's not. That's a good point.
Yeah, so
Meryl Streep is. Okay, she's not either. Marjorie apparently knows about the face work that everybody's
Listen,
had.
we women over 40, Jim.
Whoa.
We know all these
What
details.
have you been doing?
Oh, I'd do my whole head if it made a difference.
Okay,
Hey,
let's-
So listen, but the other one is Chevy Chase's National Lampoon Christmas. That's pretty good
funny,
too.
yeah. Okay, is that where the tree falls over, or is that another
Yeah,
one?
that's where the tree
That's
falls over
that's sort of
and
slapsticky,
breaks
but
all the
pretty funny.
windows in the living room.
Okay, all right,
okay,
fine.
but we're not supposed to be talking about
We're
movies.
going to
we're talking
Amesville.
about songs.
Amesville, is that how you say your name in Andover?
Yeah, that's me. Hello.
Hi, Amesville. We're glad to have you.
I live in Portland, Maine, but
Oh.
Andover's my hometown, and
I
I happened
love
to be visiting my
Portland.
dad,
Hi, Amesville.
and he turned it on, and here I am.
Oh, great. What's up?
So I mean, my number one is definitely Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues, but for this call,
Oh,
That's good.
I
that's
wanted
a
to give
good one.
shout out
That is a
to
good one.
Christmas rapping by the Waitresses.
Whoa.
Featuring, the late great vocalist Patty Donahue. I can't have Christmas without that song.
We got to
It's
find
an
that.
early
Someone
80s
yelled
new
here.
Wave gem.
Wow.
It's a gem.
Okay, we're gonna. I know this is shocking,
Christmas
Amesville,
rapping by the Waitresses,
but
right?
we're gonna get it in the next. It's pretty good. That's pretty good, Amesville. That's a good choice. Hey, thank you for calling. And Portland is one of my favorite places. Great place. Have a safe trip home.
Yeah, you could,
Amesville,
you could get a
thanks.
lot of presents wrapped listening to that, couldn't you?
You can indeed. 877-301-8970. We are talking about, not playing as many as we'd like, talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about
Christmas
Christmas
songs.
songs, your least favorite and your most favorite.
Someone is saying there's a song called "I Saw Daddy Singing Santa Claus." I thought it was "I Saw
Kissing,
Daddy
kissing.
Kissing Santa Claus." Yeah, that's the one I think. That's not so bad.
Well, after kissing him, yeah, they were seeing him, I guess is the point they were making there. Do you want to take another call?
Barbara
to keep
Streisand's
No,
"Jingle
I
Bells"
don't
is
think
a
so.
favorite of some of our listeners
I never
too.
heard that.
I never heard it
Jingle
either.
Bells is one of the worst songs like ever.
How about Porky Pig singing "Blue Christmas"? Nancy and Byfield loves
that could be really, really an uplifting experience.
Okay, let's go to Tony in Narragansett.
Oh, it's mommy kissing Santa Claus, not daddy.
That's right.
That's right. Sorry. Well, it could have been daddy. But thank you, whoever corrected us on that. So we got
So
to
maybe
everything.
it's a takeoff on mommy
Maybe
singing,
it is.
kissing
maybe,
Santa
maybe
Claus.
it's not also.
Okay, all right. Let's
Okay, you
go
want
to
to take a
Tony in
call?
Narragansett.
Yeah.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Yeah, hi. So I reiterate a prior caller about the Vince Guaraldi trio and of Charlie Brown Christmas.
Yeah.
It's been a favorite of ours for years and
great.
a tradition in our home.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's favorite, and it's become also mine, is the Pretenders. Chrissy Hines does a version of "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas."
Oh, I love
She
Chrissy
does
Hines.
That's a good one.
A spectacular job on that. You should play that if you have it.
Well, let me just ask you, if we continue
have
the
it.
show for an extra hour, can we get that song?
We know we have it now.
We have it?
We do. We have it. We're ready.
Let's hear it. Hey.
When your heart feels
This is fabulous. You ever hear this?
No.
Keep playing it for a second. Great.
That is
great. Hey, Tony, I think it was Tony. Thank you for alerting us. It doesn't sound like her to me, but it is her.
Sharon from Waltham says James Taylor's Christmas album is her favorite.
Well, we're big James Taylor fans.
We should. I don't know. I probably have heard that, but I've forgotten about it.
We're gonna. By the way, we just decided we're gonna play some of James Taylor's Christmas songs for Halloween next year. We're gonna. So if you listen to our Halloween show, we'll have those ready for you.
Here's another one: "Merry Christmas, Baby" by the Ramones.
Yeah.
That's from Jim in Duxbury.
Okay. Do you want to go to Eric and Eastie?
We'll go to Eric and Eastie.
Hi, Eric and Eastie.
Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks for having me.
too.
Sure.
So you actually named two of the songs. You kind of stole my thunder,
It's
but
okay.
I'm going to throw them out there anyway. So Springsteen song, it's
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's great.
Exactly. That's my favorite. Worst song you mentioned, the screener didn't know it. If you play this, you might actually lose listeners because it's that bad. It's that Christmas Shoes song is the worst Christmas song ever recorded, ever.
And who's it by again? Who's it by?
You have to Google
song?
it. People know it.
New song?
It's Christmas Shoes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that old. Basically, it's like a kid and his mother's dying, and on her deathbed, he gives her shoes. Like, it's terrible. It's really sad, but, like, it's awful music. And, like, I can't listen to it in the car. If it comes on, I will turn the radio off.
Okay.
Well, Nicole says it's Christmas Shoes by New Song. It's a 2000 song. We don't have it. But if we did, we would be listening to it. Thank you, Eric.
Okay.
I mean, what am I supposed to say? It's true.
Here's another one. "The Little Drummer Boy" with David Bowie. And that's from Linda and Mendon.
No, it's not just Dave Bowie. It's Dave Bowie singing with the guy who was locking his
Bing
kids in the
Crosby?
closet. Exactly, Bing Crosby.
Oh.
That's Linda from Mendon says that.
Gosh, I didn't know they did a duet.
Did you ever see David Bowie with Mick Jagger doing Dancing in the Streets, that video?
Yes, I have seen that.
How great is that?
It's very good,
It's
Jim.
not a Christmas
Not
song.
a Christmas
but
song,
we don't have it anyway.
Do we have
so-
that?
No, we don't. We don't have it, whether it's a Christmas song or we don't. So we have a meeting this morning, and Jamie is theoretically the head of this show, and I do say theoretically. Not a problem. If a caller calls in and says a song in a matter of seconds, I think he said in a nanosecond, we will have it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is Jamie.
Okay.
Who, by the way, is quoted in the Boston Globe today. You might want to pick up a copy of the Globe. It's the #1 story on the Globe, and you might want to
It
read
is?
what Jamie had. Yes, it is.
Oh, that mentions us, too.
It does. And you might
Yep.
want to see what Jamie had to say there for as long as he's
You know what
still
that means for
employed.
the number one?
What?
You know what that means for the #1 story, Jim?
What does that mean?
We've made it.
We've made it. Well, it's not really about us, but we're mentioned in the thing.
Okay.
We have time for one more disaster here. Who else is? Valerie in Rhode Island. That is perfect. How are you, Valerie?
Good. How are you doing?
We're excellent. Thank you for calling. What's up?
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say a word in defense of the Paul McCartney song.
Yeah.
I'm a bass player, and I love that song.
Well, he's a bass player. That explains that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But the song I'm calling to that I love. Okay,
Yeah.
so Amy Mann,
Yes.
Amy Mann, who was
Mann.
in the
Love
right in the great band from Boston, Till Tuesday.
Yeah.
And she did like in 2006. She made a Christmas album, and one of the songs she wrote is called "Calling on Mary," and it's a very dark song. It's not uplifting. It's kind of depressing, but it's an absolutely gorgeous song. You don't hear it on the radio very much, but I
No,
love
you
it.
won't hear it here either.
Mary was having a
We're going to
tough.
keep that tradition going.
She was having a tough night. You know what I mean?
Valerie,
Being in
that was great.
labor and all that.
We
She
gotta
wasn't
go. I'm
groaning
sorry.
and grunting and crying.
Valerie, thank you for your call.
That's probably
I'm sorry
why it wasn't
we're out
much
of time.
fun.
All that hay and
All that hay
the animals.
and the animals breathing on her and the jackass. Jim is playing a jackass in the show tonight.
am,
Ryan
actually.
Landry show.
Oh,
he was
spoiler
in the
alert.
He was there at the manger.
I was. I play the jackass. What do you play again?
The little lamb.
The little lamb.
Of course
our
you are.
puppets.
Of course I am.
Yeah, she is, and yeah, we're there with a whole team, our employees, and we
It's our
are
big,
going
our big
tonight.
staff outing.
It's big,
our Christmas
right.
outing.
Yeah, they drink a lot. Oh, you're coming actually.
Did you know I got in on that? Yeah, I'll be there.
Unfortunately, I did. Okay, so what is?
Awful.
Why are we talking? Oh, what's your favorite and least, whatever it is? What is your favorite and least favorite Christmas song?
So Judy Garland, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas."
Oh, do we have that?
Favorite.
Oh my God! what? Here it is.
Have yourself a merry
This is actually fabulous.
What a voice.
And it's this voice,
Let your heart be light.
That's a great choice. Okay, what's your least favorite?
Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
Because my
I mean,
grandmother
what is the
hated it
point?
so
She did?
much. And I never understood. I thought, you don't have a sense of humor. But now that I'm older and she's gone, I feel like I hate it in defense of her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to be grandma face down in the snowdrift.
No, you don't.
Because you're drunk.
Can I give you a little advice for the culture show? I'm a big fan of the culture show.
Sure.
It really could help your ratings if you do a show on music and have none of the music to play for people to listen to.
Well, sometimes we
because
run
we've
into
gotten
that.
great response here.
Sometimes you run into that, and Callie just sings the song for us.
Callie does. She has sung before on our show.
She's got a great voice.
resident singer.
She
Yes,
does,
she
yeah.
does have a great voice, but she refuses to sing for us on a
No,
regular
she
basis.
sang beautifully a couple
Only
of months
once.
ago. What
Only
was it?
once she
Maybe
said,
a
that's
year ago,
it.
something. Okay.
She shut us off.
So what are you doing on the show thing? It's live here, by the way, in exactly 3 minutes. What are you doing?
So we're going to start by talking about Luigi Mangione and how he's become a major celebrity out of all of this.
disgusting.
If you look on eBay, you look on Etsy, you look at Late Night, Saturday Night Live, it's this bizarre interpretation
And in the
of
prison,
an alleged murderer.
In the prison, the inmates are shouting, "Free Luigi!"
Well, and their T-shirts and everything else.
Yeah.
And we'll look at the Golden Globe nominations and a whole controversy brewing about public art at Northeastern University.
Oh, I didn't know about that. We'll be
I didn't
listening.
know about that either.
We'll be listening.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you
Right.
very much, Jared. Thank you.
Notice they were able to get Jared's song, but none of ours. What is that? I mean, think about it. Is this our show or this is not our show?
Okay. I don't know, Jim.
We're going to have to talk about
Could
this,
be a
Jamie.
message. Could be a
2 o'clock.
message.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thank you to people that came down to the Boston Public
Thank you all
Library.
for
Really
coming. We
appreciate
appreciate it.
You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. We're going to do a new one, Jim.
We are.
Tune in on Monday. We'll talk with State Senator Nick Collins, NYU Labor Institute's Terry Gerstein, and Paul Son from the National Employment Law Project, Amherst College Professor Elon Stavins, and the Ground Truth Project's Charlie Sennett, plus Boston Globe travel writer Christopher Muther. We want to thank our crew, that is not our staff, Zoe Matthews, Aiden Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer John McClaw Parker, who knows everything, and our executive producer Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to BPL staff, Bill Francis, Colin Cockrell, Patrick Lally, and Juan Jose Cadena, and thanks to our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show is right. The Week in Review is coming up right after the 2 o'clock news and right here at the Boston Public Library studio. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Brown. You were actually a great audience today.
You were a
Thank
great
you all for
audience,
coming.
yeah.
We really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Have a wonderful weekend, wonderful holiday, and we'll see you Monday.
What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Supermicro and NVIDIA, accelerating AI with a wide range of AI servers and the NVIDIA AI Enterprise software platform. Supermicro is committed to driving AI infrastructure breakthroughs with rack-scale innovations. You know their music and you know their shows that earned 34 Tony Awards. Now celebrate with an all-star cast at London's Drury Lane Theatre. It's great performances. Rodgers and Hammerstein's 80th anniversary, tonight at 7:30 on GBH2.
This is 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Luigi Mangione. As soon as his unmasked face was made public, once people knew the name of the alleged gunman who killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, fandom flooded the internet and the memes followed. There's been a lookalike contest. People have been combing through his reviews on Goodreads, and Late Night has been mining the story for monologues and laughs. So what does it say about us when an alleged murderer becomes an instant movie star-like celebrity? From there, now you see it, now you don't. In a move to raise money, the Museum of Fine Arts has decided to sell 20 Dutch and Flemish paintings from its collection. And we remember the poet and public intellectual Nikki Giovanni, who died earlier this week at age 81. We take on that and more in our Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is traveling to the Middle East to drum up support for Syria nearly a week after the ouster of former President Bashar al-Assad. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports Blinken made an unannounced stop in Iraq today.
Secretary Blinken flew to Iraq to meet the country's prime minister to talk about regional security. Before that, in Turkey, he told reporters there was broad agreement on what an interim government should look like in Syria.
One that is inclusive and non-sectarian. One that protects the rights of minorities and women, one that preserves institutions of the state and delivers services to the people.
Blinken says the U.S. is also focused on efforts to keep ISIS in check in Syria and is urging rebel leaders to secure and destroy any chemical weapons they find. The secretary will continue talks with Arab foreign ministers at a gathering in Jordan on Saturday. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has been hospitalized in Europe after sustaining an unspecified injury. NPR's Elena Moore reports Pelosi is traveling in Luxembourg with a congressional delegation.
According to her spokesperson, Pelosi is receiving, quote, excellent treatment. The statement did not provide details about how the injury occurred or the Speaker Emerita's current condition. Pelosi, who is 84, was in Luxembourg to honor American service members who fought in the Battle of the Bulge, which happened 80 years ago this December. Her spokesperson said that due to her injury, she will not be attending the rest of the events on the trip. Elena Moore, NPR News, Washington.
The president of France has named a new prime minister after the government collapsed in a no-confidence vote last week. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports Emmanuel Macron has chosen a centrist veteran lawmaker with contacts across the political spectrum.
Many hope François Bayrou will avoid the fate of his predecessor, conservative Michel Barnier, who was taken down in a no-confidence vote by parliamentarians on the far left and far right just 3 months into his term. After snap elections this summer, the French parliament is divided into 3 mutually detesting blocs where none has a majority. The priority for Bayrou will be passing a special law to roll over the 2024 budget, with a nasty battle over the 2025 legislation looming early next year. The far-left France Unbowed party said it would immediately attempt to remove Bayrou if he ignores their tax and pensions concerns. Bayrou is Macron's 4th prime minister since he was re-elected in 2022. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
Stocks are trading lower on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was down 49 points. The Nasdaq Composite down 4. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
And from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. As Congress nears next week's deadline to avert a government shutdown, lawmakers are trying to add their own legislative priorities to a stopgap spending bill. Congressman Jim McGovern says he wants to create a Medicare program that provides home meals to some patients after they leave the hospital.
One of the number one reasons why people get readmitted is that they're home alone, or they don't have the strength to make a meal, they're taking the medicine on an empty stomach, they're getting weaker, and they end up back in the hospital.
A standalone bill that McGovern introduced would fund a pilot program for 4 years for patients that require medically appropriate meals. He's also pushing for the proposal to be added to the end-of-the-year spending bill. Students who finished high school in Massachusetts but were denied diplomas for failing to pass the MCAS are now being given a second chance. GBH's Tori Bedford has more on the new guidance from the State Department of Education.
Voters struck down the state's standardized test as a graduation requirement in a November ballot referendum, which means the MCAS is no longer the law of the land for current students. And if former students have, quote, satisfactorily completed relevant coursework and gotten through their math, English language arts, and science requirements, the new directive from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education says they should be afforded a process by their districts to earn a diploma. State data shows around 700 students annually who couldn't get a diploma after failing their MCAS tests. A majority of those students had a learning disability or were learning English as a second language. Tori Bedford, GBH News, 89.7.
A sunny and cold end to your week. Highs in the 30s this afternoon, 31 degrees in Boston.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for chefs and designed for restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Burton's Grill and Bar, featuring a scratch kitchen where each dish is customizable for those with food allergies or restrictions. A gluten-free menu is also available. Details on their allergy protocols at burtonsgrill.com. And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting saints, sinners, lovers, and fools. 300 years of Flemish masterworks. Open Saturday. For tickets, you can visit pem.org.
Welcome to the Culture Show, live at the Boston Public Library. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. It's time for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. Here's what it sounded like.
A 26-year-old Maryland native is charged with second-degree murder for the shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Luigi Mangioni's 5-day run from police came to an end yesterday morning in a central Pennsylvania McDonald's when an employee there recognized him and called police.
And it really says something about America that a guy was murdered in cold blood, and the two main reactions were, yeah, well, healthcare stinks. And also, girl, that's shooter hot.
An art installation on Northeastern's campus is causing controversy among students. Nearly 2,000 students want several 15-foot flower statues that you see here removed from a prominent location on campus.
Writer, activist, and public intellectual Nikki Giovanni was an unmissable and unmistakable presence in American culture for more than 50 years.
The Golden Globe nominations are out. Emilia Perez dominates the film categories with 10 nods, and The Bear leads the television category with 5 nominations. Wicked also got 4 nods, including a nomination for the new category for box office achievement.
Feud? What feud? Ariana Grande and Selena Gomez are squashing rumors there's bad blood now that they're both up for Best Supporting Actress at the Golden Globes.
Well, as you just heard, after a nationwide search, Luigi Mangioni, the suspect in the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, was arrested and instantly skyrocketed from anonymity to cult celebrity status. From there, the Museum of Fine Arts sends some of its Dutch and Flemish masterpieces to auction, while a public art installation on Northeastern University's campus prompts public outcry. We remember literary legend Nikki Giovanni, the poet and public intellectual who has died at 81. The Golden Globe nominations are out. We'll review our favorites, and it's Follow-Up Friday with an update on some of the stories we've been covering, including a judge blocking the Onion's bid to buy InfoWars. Well, first up, Luigi Mangioni. What could have been 15 minutes of infamy, instead, the murder suspect has reached instant fame, becoming a sensation and an obsession. This has been really, really interesting to watch, kind of macabre to watch. Of course, even before we knew his identity, there were lookalike contests already happening in New York. And then, of course, he's arrested. People see what this man looks like, and there is this very strange combination of him being a described folk hero or a vigilante, alongside the fact that people find his good looks really entrancing and have made him into this sensational figure, while at the same time a man was shot dead, allegedly at his hand, on the streets of New York, a man with a family, a man who by all rights was just trying to do his job. We can dissect what the healthcare industry represents, as other people like Senator Elizabeth Warren have weighed in. But this is a really interesting moment, I think, to look at our culture and how we're embracing an alleged murderer.
Well, I think we can look back and see that there are other instances where murderers, convicted murderers, have been admired and turned into martyrs. So there's that. But I think there's a double whammy here with that part of that admiration for all certain sets of folks, always married to this healthcare issue, which is really such a huge problem for so many of us. Even people who don't have a problem can realize the impact of the failure of the system to work for everybody. So you immediately understand what that was all about. But what makes it so horrible to me. The fact that getting overlooked, it seems to me, in many of these discussions, the fact that the man died, as you said, is that right now they can't even determine if he was a client of United Healthcare. So it wasn't like you did me wrong and, I'm going after the top of the, it's to me just horrific. But I've always been upset about that kind of admiration for folks that did this kind of action. But we have it ingrained in us. If you start talking about Ted Bundy getting marriage proposals and eventually marrying one, exactly. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, as you say, Jared, we watch this play out. It is both sort of, the word isn't interesting, but it's almost like I can't believe I'm watching it play out, and at the same time, it seems entirely predictable, right? Mm-hmm. There's a great piece Angela Watercutter wrote in Wired magazine where I feel like she sort of has nailed this. The piece is called "The Internet's Obsession with Luigi Mangione Signals a Major Shift," and she opens with, "Luigi Mangione, currently the Internet's main character, probably isn't who you think he is. Mm-hmm. Main characters are like that. Once you reach main character status, right. You become a screen on which we are going to project whatever it is that we think we want to project." We're also in a time of, and I understand this is real life, but we are increasingly experiencing real life on the same platforms that we are experiencing fake life, right? Mm-hmm. And we are in an age where for at least a decade now, the anti-hero has really been lauded in everybody from Tony Soprano to Walter White to everybody on Succession, right? We have become a people who admire the anti-hero, and he fits the bill as a character of an anti-hero.
When they become flesh and blood, really, in our world, and these figures who were once in the subculture move their way into the mainstream. So
can I just respond to something that Edgar said? He mentioned this Tony Soprano character, and I recall that what's the name of the guy who wrote the series and directed it?
David Chase.
David Chase.
Okay, he put in one of the episodes, which was shocking to me at the time, something that said to one of the characters after they did something horrible, "Well, what do you think? Who do you think we are?" And he said it was because people had put Tony Soprano on a hero, and he wanted to remind people, hey, these people are murderers. Yeah. You need to understand who they are. So I just wanted to say that that's really relevant,
And
here.
it seems that either people are clouded, confused, or find a fodder for entertainment here. Here's Luigi Giovanni, again, being that fodder for late-night laughs in the monologue by Jimmy Kimmel earlier this week.
Police in Altoona report that they've been getting threats from Mangione's fans demanding he be released immediately. And I've been on TV just about nonstop for 29 years. This guy's he's been in the news since Monday. He has fans threatening the police. Why do I feel like if I shot somebody, even my mother would be like, lock him up, teach him a lesson. It's the only way he's gonna learn.
And here's Colin Jost from this past week's Saturday Night Live Weekend Update.
New York City officials sent a tough message on crime. If you shoot somebody in the middle of the street, you better get on your bike, hop on a bus, and get the heck out of here, mister. And it really says something about America that a guy was murdered in cold blood, and the two main reactions were, yeah, well, healthcare stinks. And also, girl, that shooter hot.
Well, that falls in the category of it's funny because it's true. Yes. There's always a place for humor and satire in all of this, but this is exposing, again, what we're finding. I combed through Etsy and eBay this morning after I was reading these accounts and how much is up there. There is so much merchandise available right now. You can buy his image and his sayings that deny, depose, defend, allegedly, again, the words that he etched onto the bullet casings, allegedly. You can find those emblazoned on T-shirts, on mugs, on magnets. You can buy the New York Post headlines. You can buy a version of the backpack that he was wearing for $300. So add another layer to this. There's this whole commercialization now of an alleged murderer, again, showing us more about ourselves. And Edgar, I think you really hit it. We used to talk about video games. You engaged in this kind of behavior, and then we found its way working onto the streets, and now we're seeing, people imbibe this behavior on TikTok or whatever, or these fictional characters, and somehow he becomes somebody to embrace and laud.
But I think Callie hit something. I mean, there's so many things happening here, right? The fact that he's good looking, very good looking, plays into this for sure, right? There's no question about that. I would argue the fact that his name is Luigi plays into this, right? If you're writing this, like, you know, these things are stuff that we know are going to capture people's attention. But Callie also points out, I think, the fact that it is not hard to take the leap from, you know, your experience. There is a sense, I think, from a lot of people that to a certain extent, there is some level of justice in what he's doing. Like, he has taken something that they see as an evil industry, and he took matters into his own hand, and that's something that, like, I think a lot of people kind of admire.
Well, this is a turn that I wanted to make in this conversation, because now this also, through the arts, has us looking at the issue of healthcare in this country. So here's Senator Elizabeth Warren, who was in a wide-ranging interview on MSNBC this week. During this conversation, she brought up Luigi Mangione as a warning.
We'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
We need regulation, in part, to rein those guys in. And you know where this is coming?
So she had to walk back those comments because there was people interpreted it as she was issuing a warning. And in no way we can tell that was she endorsing what he did. She wasn't exalting him as a celebrity, but she has waded into this conversation as well, as has a songwriter. His name is Jesse Wells. He created a folk song criticizing the American health industry. It's going viral right now, and the song is titled United Health. It dropped on Wednesday, and here's some of that song, which I would argue, listen to it, it's very good.
There's an office and a building and a person and a chair, and you paid for it all, though you may be unaware. You paid for the paper, you paid for the phone, you paid for everything they need to deny you what you're owed. There ain't no you in United Health, there ain't no me in the company, there ain't no us in the private trust. There's hardly humans in humanity. Now the procedure that you're needing ain't the cost-effective route, and only 2% of people end up winning a dispute. So if you get sick, pray to God for health, cause your doctor's gotta pray to United Health.
So we see, again, this singer-songwriter Jesse Wells, who's actually going out on tour right now. He'll be here in the Boston area in February, looking at this, turning this John Prine-esque song around and taking aim at the industry.
But even this, to me,
I thought it was Woody Guthrie. That's
but this is what I was going to say. This is sort of, I feel like we're all characters, right? Because he looks like when Bob Dylan used to dress up like Woody Guthrie, you know? So it's like these images that we have, I don't know, it feels like we're all characters. And I also sort of feel like we have to look at this in the broader context of a culture right now where I think there is a fair amount of nihilism among people. And when something like, it feels a little bit like we collectively are on a night out, everybody's a little bit too drunk, and we know we're going to pay for it at some point, but we're like, for tonight, we're just gonna keep drinking. We're going for it, right?
Well, yeah, it's bizarre to watch, but on the other hand, as I think you're saying, it makes a lot of sense at the same time. Well, you're listening to our Arts and Culture Week in Review, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. Coming up, the legacy of literary legend Nikki Giovanni. The conversation continues on 89.7 GBH.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Part of the GBH News Equity and Justice Unit.
A lot of regions and neighborhoods in Boston are minority majority.
Reporter Trajan Warren.
And if they aren't seeing their stories told, then they can feel not a part of this city that they inhabit. One thing that we want to do is hold up a mirror to the people in Boston. A lot of them come from so many different backgrounds. And this reporting will help amplify that and help people see themselves.
Elevating issues of equity and justice. GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Z-Tech Associates. For more than 3 decades, Z-Tech has been committed to helping Boston area businesses with their information technology challenges by providing a wide variety of IT services. Learn more at ztechnet.com. Elevate your brand and support local journalism with a GBH sponsorship. Your custom sponsorship package can include audio, video, digital, and events. Learn more at gbh.org/sponsorship.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, the state's top federal prosecutor is announcing the resolution of a case involving OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma. 2 schools in the North Middlesex district are set to close after a budget override failed to pass. And closing out a week of reporting on active aging with pickleball, a sport popular with older people. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Back to the Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Horwick III. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. We're going over the latest headlines, which includes the Museum of Fine Arts putting some of its centuries-old Dutch and Flemish paintings up for auction. We saw the headline this week. This never seems to be a good thing. However, I think that this is okay, this one. So in the past, and especially in the past few years, since the pandemic, when museum guidelines around the country have been relaxed and institutions were allowed to sell paintings, that is, for myriad reasons, including operational costs, paying for salaries because of the economic hit they took during COVID and the economic downturn, they were allowed to compensate with the sale of paintings. This is not that case. So we have learned that they're selling 17 Golden Age Dutch and Flemish paintings, but as the MFA has explained, this is really about trying to reshape their collection. Essentially, it's a clearinghouse, clearing out the attic because they have some, what they could, in loose terms, called duplicates, or other artists are represented in that realm already. So this is more about refining the collection with the proceeds ultimately going to the acquisition of new works.
Yeah, when we first heard the news, I thought it was about operational costs, and as we know, and we've discussed here, so many museums are forced in that position. So it is a good news that they are trying to broaden their collection. Duplicates, you said, but also I thought it was interesting that they just frankly said there's some stuff that's just never going to get seen.
Yep.
It's just not, we have some other stuff that's a little bit better. So we have an opportunity now to, as we say here, de-accession some of these paintings and go for some others that we will be able to exhibit more frequently.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems entirely reasonable, prudent, and really well thought through, right? When you sort of get into the details of how this was determined, it appears they got a gift of a whole bunch of paintings of this same era recently, which really expanded their collection. And then it seems totally reasonable. They said, all right, let's look at everything we have. They're not selling anything that was part of the early collection of the MFA. They're not selling anything that they've received in the last 40 years, I think it is, because they need to give it time to make sure that it's okay to get rid of it. And there is no artist that they are going to be getting rid of a work from who they don't already have, right? So this, to me, is like, good job.
Win-win.
Great, like good management.
Yeah.
Well done. And,
and
right. Some people are going to get some really nice art to be like, this used to be at the MFA in Boston.
Which, because they're selling them at an auction at Christie's coming up in the new year. Hopefully, the fact that they do have this MFA provenance, another museum word, the history of the painting having been in the MFA collection will allow them to generate more revenue. I think the other thing that I feel I know a fair amount about is I know about this collection they received, the Van Otterloos and the Weatherby families giving this extraordinary collection, including at least one Rembrandt that I can remember. This was a number of years ago. What they got in that gift was an amazing collection of pieces, because the Van Otterloos in particular, they wanted to collect the best of every sort of painting. If it was a Dutch landscape, they wanted to collect the best that they were able to collect. This was a prized collection that museums all over the country were vying for, and it was our fortune that the MFA here in Boston ultimately landed that connection. They are local families. And so I think also knowing Frederick Ilchman, who is the chair of this art at the Museum of Fine Arts, he's a strategic thinker, so I'm sure he's already probably shopping in his head. And we'll probably later this or next year on the Culture Show be talking about some pretty extraordinary pieces coming their way, which is nice to see. Well, next, a public art installation on Northeastern University's campus has prompted public outcry, prompting the Student Government Association to vote to remove it. It's by local artist Cicely Carew. It's titled Rooted. It features 5 15-foot tall structures made of steel and aluminum mesh that resemble colorful flowers. However, a bunch of students on the northeastern campus got really upset, especially around graduation time, arguing that it marred the aesthetic of their campus screen on northeastern Huntington Avenue's campus, and that it was, I guess, kind of in their words, polluting their graduation photos, that they didn't have an unobstructed view of their school behind them.
Yeah, we should note that there is a petition with quite a number of signatures on that petition. The other thing to note is that Cicely Carew, the artist, was surprised. She hadn't been contacted and heard this. She's like, I'm, disappointed, as one would be. We also, the public art thing is going to keep coming up as a conversation on this show for sure. But in general, as we talk about, art and its place in community and where it should be or not. And as people may know, I'm a graduate of Wellesley, and I recall the controversy with The Sleepwalker, which was a half-naked man had on shorts by Tony Mattelli that was outside, and there was a purpose of where it was located.
Not shorts, but tidy whities.
Tidy
kind
whities.
Of shorts.
Okay, well,
yeah,
okay. That is
short shorts.
Right.
The good shorts.
So many students there felt triggered by it. It wasn't just I don't like it. I personally didn't think it was very attractive, but that has nothing to do with anything. This was about they were having a different kind of visceral response to it with regard to sexual assault, which an artist, as you can imagine, said, no, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
Certainly it has, other, I'm shocked by this. So in the end, to end a long story, people threw paint on it. He bought it back from the insurers, and he still owns it. And he then exhibited it at the High Line in New York. No problem. It was there. People walking by, they had it. So some of this has to do with the exact environment, I think, and who is responding to it in that space and time. But I think I think her work is very interesting and appropriate for the space. But the students are the ones that are raising this.
And so people don't think I was being casual. I interviewed Tony Mattelli,
Yes.
and he said, those are tidy whities. That's why I interjected, because he based this on himself, actually.
So one of the things, there's a few things happening here. One, I think what you said, Callie, is completely right. And I think it's a good thing that public art is going to keep coming up, because I think that public art should start discussions. I think people should be having these conversations about this kind of thing. One thing I find interesting in this is that the Student Government Association had a vote. They're kind of doing their thing, and I respect that. They there was obviously some outcry, so they got together, they had a vote, 52 votes in favor, 12 abstaining, to say let's get rid of it. But I find their statement, which they say they call the art idiosyncratic and incongruous.
Yeah.
And I see those two words and I think that sounds like a piece of art that I would be interested in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like in
exactly.
some ways the whole idea of art is that it
Yes.
should be challenging. And so I don't know. To me, I find that piece of it interesting. One thing I will say for the students is they are asking, or they are demanding for it to come down, but they are also saying in their statement that they think that the university ought to engage with the student population before they put more art up or put art up in general on the campus. That I feel like, now listen, I'm not saying that the Student Government Association or any group of students who are moving through this university at any time should have full say, but I think I'm okay with the idea that an institution might engage both the current student population, maybe the former student population, in some part of a process when they're doing something.
Well, this is so interesting because we're often, as Callie, as you pointed out, we're talking about these issues because they're really highly charged. This is just subjective. This is what people think. Is the art good or bad? So if you're playing along at home, so here are some of the responses. First, we reached out to NYU. This is NYU and Northeastern University. This is the statement they gave us this morning. We embrace the idea that public art often sparks discussions, disagreements, and insights. This is consistent with the purpose of a university. Here, from an NBC 10 Boston story, this is what some of the students on campus were saying.
Maybe somewhere else on campus it would add a nice touch.
I think it's beautiful. I'm sure there's a meaning behind it as well.
I think they're really colorful and don't match anything, and I think they're ugly.
It was really sad when my friends graduated and they had to take a picture there, but then all these 3 poles coming in between.
Clearly there's like a certain message behind this that the artist was trying to portray, so.
Like, they're cool, just not for here.
And here is from the artist. So I interviewed Cicely Carew on the Culture Show back in January. So this is not about this installation in particular, but this is how she works with these large-scale installations. So here's this conversation I had with Cicely Carew when she had won the very prestigious ICA Foster Prize at the Institute of Contemporary Art. And here's what she had to say when I asked her about how she shapes environments with her work.
I like to think of my work as process. It's always in process. It is process-based and about activating space, responding to space, and seeing everything that's around that we consider banal, just ordinary things that aren't given much attention as extraordinary and full of possibility. So I try to throw all of that into the work, and literally that is the material that I'm using. It's like a language of change and what we see just out in the world or scattered on the floor in my studio, but everything's at play, and I want to always imbue my work with that. It's just love at the end of the day, you know.
So now what do we think?
Well, what I think is that there perhaps was not enough, and there can, let me just say this, probably for me, never enough engagement with the students around the piece. Engagement with the artist, engagement with the words she just said to you in a more deep way. This is how I came to this. This is what I'm doing. To have some sense of why the placement here, all of that would help. But even at the end of that, if you still stepped away and said, well, I don't like it, but your primary reason is that it's interfering with your graduation photo, I just have to say I'm sorry. That's just, come on. I'll take something else, but that just seems ridiculous to
I
me.
mean, I'll agree with that. I'll also say, like, I don't know this space. I don't go to this school. I didn't go to this school. And I can imagine a world where, the student population has a certain feeling about a particular space that, one space is more sacred than another to them in the way that they engage in the world.
Okay.
And I can also imagine an institution where the folks who are in charge of that institution are not necessarily in touch with the students' experience of that institution. And so the idea that maybe this space gets chosen and everybody's in good faith, the artist can be in good faith and say, I'm going to look at this space and here's a way I think I can activate this space. And you can have a student population that says, no, this is not a space to activate. This is a space that's meaningful to us the way it is. I mean, both of those things could be true.
Okay, Edgar, that gave me a thought. That gave me a moment. Yeah, I have to kind of think about what you just said.
Well, I have to say, so it's located on their main facade. I remember leaving the MFA this spring. I was at an exhibition. I was walking to the south end, long walk, walked right in front of the campus, forgetting that they were there, and I looked up and I thought, oh, wow, really nice. And I enjoyed looking at them, and I enjoyed seeing them. Cicely Carew, we spoke with her this morning, and she said that she's going to be meeting with the Student Government Association early next year as part of her own mission to have community building, so they'll have a dialogue. My guess is they get moved somewhere else on the campus, but I think it's a great discussion about public art. And as Northeastern University said, this is exactly what art is supposed to do. Provoke conversation.
And good on both the students and her for getting together to talk about it.
I'm just sorry that it came this way. This could have been front-loaded, to have much conversation. To your
You're
point.
right.
I'm giving you many points.
Thank you, Callie. I'm putting that in my pocket and taking it with me this weekend.
Edgar, 17 points. Jared, 0 points. Well, next, earlier this week, the poet, public intellectual, and activist Nikki Giovanni died at age 81. She had such a huge presence in this world as a thinker, first of all, just as a thinker, something we don't often see anymore. That's what I kept thinking after she died this week, that she was somebody who would be on the late night shows, and there was that whole era where you invited people like Susan Sontag and Nikki Giovanni and other people onto the shows because they had so much to say about our culture, and she was transformative in that way for her poetry, for her books, for her scholarship, and who she was as a major personality in this country.
Well, I can't express the depth of the loss for someone like me who's followed her for years. Instrumental in my expansion of understanding of the humanities and an appreciation of it. She was significant to the Black Arts Movement. Some people may not be familiar with that in the 60s and 70s. John Oliver Killens, one of the other authors in that movement, also Ntozake Shange, who actually graduated from Harvard, so people may know her name. But the way that she wrote, the way that she was able to capture the ideas was so beautiful. So her words, her work, as I was explaining earlier today, actually, became part of an expression that we now know as poetry slams, the performance of the work. That was not in the zeitgeist at the time. People performed it, but it didn't have a name and a sort of things like that. She was one of the forces of that. She was born in Tennessee, though she was raised in Cincinnati. She and I share something else. She was a member of the distinguished and dynamic Delta Sigma Theta sorority.
Right.
You know I have to bring it up when it follows. And I just loved her poems. One that is being cited quite a bit. There are many I could cite, but I just wanted to point out the one that came from her anthology, which is what she wrote about what she wanted to have said to her when she died, which is, let me just find it really quick. I just lost it, of course, in my paperwork, because that's who I am. Because I'm not organized as she is. She said, I hope I die warmed by the life that I tried to live. I just think that's beautiful. I want to remind people she's also the poet who came up with a beautiful statement poetically after the killer on the Virginia Tech campus happened, which was titled "We Are the Hokies." So there's much of her stuff to read. 3 New York Times bestsellers, a Grammy nomination, 7 NAACP awards, 31 honorary degrees. She's well-credentialed, but well-loved as well.
And also, I think one of the things that I really admire about her is, reading her poetry or reading an interview with her, you see the same facility with language, just the way she spoke, the way she used the English language. There are so many sort of just turns of phrase that she comes up with that are singular, that are completely unique. She described in a 2020 New York Times interview, she was talking about her wife, her partner, and she says, everybody needs a bench. She called her bench. Everybody needs a bench, and in order to get a bench, you have to be one. I could say love, but you get tired of hearing about love.
Isn't
I mean,
that
it's just like,
beautiful?
that's how she spoke. That's incredible.
I know.
Let's hear a little bit of how she spoke, because a lot of people have been going back to this monumental interview. This is the beauty of public television and public media. This amazing conversation she did with James Baldwin in the 1970s. It's from 1971. And in this exchange, she's talking about her frustration with how some black women are treated by men in relationships.
Why are you going to be truthful with me when you lie to everybody else? You lied when you smiled at that cracker down the job, right? Lie to me, smile. Treat me the same way you would treat him.
I can't treat you the way I treat him.
You must. Because I've caught the frowns and the anger. He's happy with you. Of course he doesn't know you're unhappy. You grin at him all day long. You come home and I catch hell. Because I love you, I get least of you. I get the very minimum. And I'm saying, fake it with me. Is that too much of the black woman to ask of the black man? For 10 years, so that we can get a child on his feet that says, yeah, father smiled at mother. He talked to me about school today.
And the great background of that interview is to know that you had 2 major thinkers. She was a very young one,
young.
In her very early 20s. James Baldwin, I can only
47.
imagine how intimidating it must have been to be in his presence. And she held her own with him. He clearly saw that, and there's just electricity in that interview. So a major loss. And I unfortunately have another one to report that our producers are just telling us about. Callie, this is in your Wellesley family. Lorraine O'Grady has passed away, the artist, at 90 years old.
Oh, no.
We spoke with her earlier this year. She had an exhibition, both and at the Wellesley College Davis Museum, and she was somebody who had a very slow burn. She worked so effortlessly in creating her art at a time when people didn't really recognize it. She was a trailblazer from Boston, had gone to Boston Latin. She was a translator, just worked so hard, was a rock critic in New York at a time when black artists weren't really accepted, especially black female artists. She fought her way into those rooms, into those galleries, into those museums, documented it in her art, and it was only really in the last decade that she really came into her own, and we talked about that. You can go back and listen to our interview with her on The Culture Show, so that's another major loss that we're just learning about here on The Culture Show today.
That exhibit was mobbed, by the way, both and at the Wellesley. It was wonderful.
And she was so generous meeting with the students there. That was key to her being there. She wanted to interact with the students.
That's exactly right. She's lovely. Oh, I'm just so sad by that news.
As am I. Well, coming up, the Golden Globe nominations are out. Could they be an indicator for the Oscars? And why are people thirsting for a Selena Gomez-Ariana Grande fight? That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Applying to college is daunting. There's test scores, interviews, recommendations.
I didn't know where to start, and I was very stressed out about the whole thing.
But what if students could skip all that?
This is a generation that's used to Uber to show up at their doorstep and not wait 6 to 9 months for an admissions acceptance letter.
I think that it's just an awesome thing, and it takes stress off of the students.
I'm Kurt Carapezza. You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and Watershed Informatics.
Watershed Informatics exists to enable life scientists to extract the insights they need from their data.
Mark Kalinich, co-founder and CSO.
We want to be good corporate citizens, and I think it's been really nice to deliver our messaging to our target audience, as well as support the hugely beneficial programming that GBH organizes.
To learn more, visit gbh.org/sponsorship.
For decades, Canada has been home to the largest Sikh community outside the Indian state of Punjab.
So if you asked up until very recently, the average Sikh in Punjab, where would you like to go? They would have answered Canada.
But diplomatic tensions have flared between Canada and India, and the Sikh community is facing new threats. Next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herwick III. I just want to add one other little note about Lorraine O'Grady. We reported that sadly she's just died. It was announced by her estate at age 90. We talked about you can listen to that conversation on The Culture Show. You can also see her art and a story that we did on the GBH News YouTube channel. Again, it's a remarkable career, and to hear her talking about it was so much fun. Well, if you're just tuning in, we're going over the latest headlines on our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes the Golden Globe nominations out this week. And so first of all, this is always a little messy, I feel like, talking about the Golden Globes now, because they became very scandalous a couple of years ago when all of their bad behavior was finally exposed, and that was the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which runs the Golden Globe Awards. They were basically exposed for a lack of diversity, for bribes, taking trips. So this is why you might see Emily in Paris get nominations where they might not be nominated anywhere else.
Yeah.
I love the show, love to watch. Not sure it's Golden Globe worthy. And so it disappeared for a little while, and then it came back. NBC kicked it to the curb, so now CBS bought up the broadcast rights for a song, which I think is an indicator. So it used to be this conversation, the Golden Globes would tell us all the front runners for the Oscars. I'm not sure that's completely true anymore. That said, we'll still talk about it a little bit because it's kind of fun. But one of the things that surfaced is this interest in having a fight between Ariana Grande and Selena Gomez, and people who are thirsting for this kind of feel like they have it in the making because both actors are nominated in the supporting actress category. Ariana Grande for Wicked, of course, and Selena Gomez for Emilia Perez. And they have been at pains to say, we're really kind of friendly here, actually. We enjoy each other's company. But I think this almost goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, this manufactured hate that, well, in the other case, it's alleged hate if you have an alleged murderer. But this is crafting something, dwelling in the negative and trying to put it into motion.
Bloodlust. We are in a moment of bloodlust. We are thirsty for this kind of like very macabre drama, right? It's just, it's sort of it's like, how do you say this? It's like you look back at ancient Rome and what they did in the Colosseum, right? And those were humans and we are humans. And while we like to think that we have evolved since then, it is part of the nature of being human that you've got to watch out, because if you don't watch out, that kind of thing can get into your bones, and you get that way, and we're getting that way.
Well, I want to say that it's very important to note that this is organized chaos and quote-unquote hate or dislike or whatever, because these are the fans. And so they each have their group of stands, as we say, who are fighting for their person. So there are some people that say, Ariana Grande can't act, and so the fans of Selena Gomez are, what are you talking about? She can't do anything. So this is going back and forth. If you really want to see a stand group that will bite your head off in a moment, look at the Bayhive. That
Yeah.
is that is
Now,
Queen Bee.
are you a member of the
Beyonce's.
Bayhive?
I am not. But
Okay,
I'm
I was just
saying.
curious. Yeah.
I'm just letting you know that Beyonce's Bayhive will come for you. So these two are going.
We all love Beyonce. Very, very
we
much.
do.
We
These
do,
two are
actually.
going at it because of that. And I just have to also say that this is part and parcel. Somebody mentioned this, and I want to amplify it. If it's two women, they're going to make it a cat fight.
Yeah.
I don't see this kind of level of
Never.
stuff, never, with men.
Yep.
So come on. Both women have said we are professionals. We actually know each other and like each other, admire each other's work. We're on the record before the nominations, having said both.
And after they're on
Guys-
each other's Instagrams, like, you're an angel. No, you're an angel.
It's
like,
ridiculous.
okay.
It's annoying.
Well,
you know?
at least now that we've settled that, we decided to each take a moment just to talk about the Golden Globe nominations and sort of our favorite moments. I'll start. The Brutalist has 7 nominations. I probably won't have a chance to talk about it on this show, but I've seen it. It's it opens, I believe, Christmas Day, and it's a really spectacular film with an intermission, I might add, an actual
good.
intermission built
Excellent.
in.
The return of the intermission right
Exactly.
now.
I love it.
And which means it's longer, but it completely holds. And Adrian Brody, who was also nominated for Best Actor, it also gets Best Picture, Supporting Actress, Supporting Actor, Director, Screenplay, Score. This, I think, will be a heavyweight at the Oscars, but it's about a Hungarian architect escaping after World War II, a Jewish Hungarian architect escaping the horrors of World War II and reinventing his whole life, basically, and building, literally and metaphorically, his life here, and it's riveting.
Wow. All right, well, I'm going to go for John Chu, the director of Wicked, not being nominated as a
Snub.
director. I would just like to, there's a couple things here. First of all, the struggles of the directors who have very popular movies. There's almost a built-in bias against them. You can't be good because it's just too popular and commercial.
Yeah.
You're not arty enough. Listen, he did In the Heights. It was horrible. This, is something else. The critical acclaim for this is great. So I think... And also, you have to ask yourself, if all the other people in the film, people behind the scenes and the stars of it are getting nominations, who do you think directed them? This is ridiculous.
They direct themselves, Callie.
Of course. So I think I'm with you, Jared, that this is maybe one of those situations where the Golden Globes no longer predict what the Oscars are going to do, because I think he has a shot at the Oscars.
All right. All right. My pick is the television show Slow Horses, which is in its 4th season. There's a nomination for Gary Oldman for Best Actor. He's fantastic in this show. Also a nomination for Best Supporting Actor and for Best Television Show. I point this out because not only do I love this show, and it's an English show. It's on Apple TV. I love the way they make this show. So in a time when, for example, another show I love, Stranger Things, for example. Stranger Things Season 4 happened in 2022. We've been waiting for Season 5 now for going on 3 years. Slow Horses, their first episode was also in 2022. They are now in their 4th season. They have found a way to produce short seasons. Apple TV has done a good job of making sure that they are knowing that they have a renewal coming. It helps that they have good written source material for this. This is based on a series of novels. But they have churned out 6-episode seasons, 4 of them over a course of 2 years, all of them high quality, all of them good. I would love to see more of that on television, so I'm glad they're getting recognized.
I echo you. I love that show. I was just saying to you both right before we came on the air that for my holiday treat is going to be watching Season 3. I'm deliberately I want it slower, actually, just because it's
Slow
that
those
good.
horses down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if it's Friday,
it's time for Follow Up Friday. Follow Up Friday. Follow Up Friday. Follow Up Friday.
Yes, it's Follow Up Friday, which includes peeling back The Onion's InfoWars efforts. Last month, The Onion was the winning bidder in a bankruptcy auction to purchase Alex Jones' InfoWars with the goal of relaunching it as a parody. This week, a bankruptcy judge rejected the sale, citing concerns over how the auction was handled. We talked about this because this was just pretty extraordinary, actually, and almost incongruous until we learned more about it. And The Onion, the satirical newspaper, had an eye on InfoWars. They would turn it around. They would do their Onion thing by owning Alex Jones's site, and they had the backing of family members who were in the lawsuit against Alex Jones from the Sandy Hook shooting and all of the untruths that he spoke about those victims and their family members. But now we've seen a judge weigh in and say they have to go back and refigure this out because he didn't think there was enough transparency and that the families could have actually gotten more money for the sale.
Yeah, he says, in fact, they left too much money on the table. table, meaning the Onion bid $1.7 million in cash. The settlement they won was for $1.4 billion.
Yeah.
So the judge is like, they need to have something else. Now, remember, as you said, Jared, the parents were in support of this because of the institution that is the Onion. They were hoping to be associated with an organization that was going to truth tell, which is what their issue was. So the judges said you got to go do something else. He said he doesn't want another auction, however.
Yeah.
So I don't know what.
They got to work
here.
it out. I mean,
Yeah.
and there was only one other bidder besides the Onion, which was affiliated with Alex Jones, which was $3.5 million in cash, which is not that much more. So I don't know what's going to happen here. Obviously, they're going to go back to the table. The Onion has said they are still committed to trying to make this work. I got to say, if the families are on board. And they're the reason the judge is saying that, you shouldn't do it because they could have gotten more money. But if they're okay with this, I think you got to take that into account, too.
Yeah, I would think.
It sounds like they have details.
Yeah.
Well, that, of course, is the music to Dancing with the Stars, because a couple of things have come out this week. First of all, I was enraged earlier this year because of the convicted Anna Sorokin, Anna Delvey, whichever name you want to go by. She was convicted for grand larceny for cheating people out of a lot of money. She had been sentenced to 4 to 12 years in state prison in New York. She got an early release, which allowed her to go on Dancing with the Stars. And my argument was, again, maybe going back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, what is a convict doing on Dancing with the Stars? Well, joke's on me, because they had their highest ratings in 3 years. So that's how that ended.
Yep.
But I guess we can get off that and we can talk about something I know you're both very excited about,
And
which
get on your high pommel horse.
Well done. Yeah, what's happening on that front?
Well, pommel horse guy, who of course is local Olympian, had a kind of a star turn on Dancing with the Stars, and now will be the centerpiece of a live 2025 tour. They're going on. What I find nuts about this is they are doing 81 shows across the U.S. and Canada over a course of 4 months. That's a lot of
grind.
shows.
No, they do.
That is a lot of shows.
Mm-hmm.
But he's, I'm all for it. It's nice to see that Olympians have some other way on the back end of Olympic success to make money besides trying to get on the front of a Wheaties box. So good for him.
Well, this is Steven Netarasic, and I think he's fabulous. I thought he was fabulous when he won, and it's because I believe, he is so sincere and so appreciative, and that just went well for him on Dancing with the Stars. Came in fourth, but everybody loves him. So he's a perfect pick to be co-host of this live 2025 tour. Good for him.
So I think each of us at this table can identify that this is Bruce Springsteen. However, we're wondering if a possible candidate for governor in New Jersey, Josh Gottheimer, could identify that as Bruce Springsteen. This is a really hilarious story. We were recently talking about, you guys were talking about the Spotify Wrapped. And this, I can't even say this without laughing because it's so absurd. But I think kind of this is predictable for some politicians. In an effort to be more related to the people in New Jersey, he wanted to show them how much he listens to Bruce Springsteen by exposing his Spotify Wrapped playlist, which showed him listening to all of this Springsteen until eagle-eyed reporters went, wait a minute, there are misspellings. This is what it doesn't look like this graphically. He made it up.
Because he says he shares his account with his kids, and some of the songs are inappropriate, he says. Come on, guy. This is just weird.
I mean, this is classic politician,
weird.
right? Like sort of little white lie that you didn't need to do.
Exactly.
And then when you get caught, you throw your kids under the bus rather than admit
I
it.
hadn't even thought of that, actually.
You know what I mean? He's just like, well, it's because my kids were listening to a lot of Taylor Swift, and I couldn't. But I was the one listening to nothing but Bruce Springsteen.
I'm really cool. Really,
Also,
I'm cool.
Like honestly, there are no Bruce Springsteen deep cuts, so question mark on your Bruce Springsteen bona fides as well. Like, come on.
Well, to be clear, he tried to make it so that all the Bruce Springsteen songs were the top 5, and he faked that.
Yeah, and
so
he was
people
like,
understand
no
what the thing
surprise,
was.
I'm listening to nothing but Springsteen, fellow New Jerseyans.
I'm waiting for Springsteen to respond. That's what I want.
I want to know what his real playlist is.
Yeah.
Take the kid's excuse out.
Oh, that's
I
a
want to
good
know what the
story.
real one is.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like,
Engelbert Humperdinck.
hey now.
Challenge Chaperone. Could be chaperone. We don't know.
I was going to find the most ludicrous example, and then I thought, I'm not going to offend anybody by bringing up my most ludicrous example. All right. We are saved by the lightning round, of course. We're going to make this a quick one this week, but these are the headlines that caught our attention this week. Callie, what's yours?
Mine is Mufasa, the Lion King, which opens next Friday, December the 20th. It's another version of the whole story of the Lion King. But James Earl Jones, people will remember, was the voice of the main character, Mufasa, in the 1994 Disney film. They were in the press in a press tour talking about the new version coming up on December 20th. When they learned that he had died, they decided to give a tribute to him in the film using his voice, which is, look at the stars. You'll remember he said this, the great kings of the past are always looking down on us. And then the text reveals in remembrance of James Earl Jones, because even though he was not associated with this, they just, Barry Jenkins of Moonlight fame felt like he had to say something about his legacy with this franchise.
Which is goosebumps.
I know.
Edgar?
So this goes in the category of the sign of our time. So an arena in New Jersey where Major League Soccer and Women's Soccer League teams play, which was Red Bull Stadium, is now going to be Sports Illustrated Stadium. Now the twist here is that Sports Illustrated, the magazine, which is kind of why you know the name Sports Illustrated, has nothing to do with this. Sports Illustrated had trouble as a publication. Their brand name was sold to one of these companies, Authentic Brands, that like rehabilitates, brands, and they basically just licensed the name Sports Illustrated out. They have a ticketing agency, which is going to be the exclusive ticketing at Sports Illustrated Stadium, but the publication was sold to a completely different company, Minute Media, who's producing the actual publication. They make no money on it. So it's just, this sort of strange way that our big business world operates now. The reason why people might have an affinity for Sports Illustrated is because of 70 years of amazing sports journalism, and the sports journalism people are making $0 on this deal.
Wow.
Crazy.
Well, I'll make mine really quick. Today, December 13th, is the 99th birthday of Dick Van Dyke.
Yes.
60 years ago. 60 years ago, he made Mary Poppins, and he's still performing because in a video that's been released today, a longer version of it was released earlier this week, you can see him dancing in this new song by Coldplay's Chris Martin. It's beautiful. They juxtapose it with all these great images and video of Dick Van Dyke dancing in his earlier days. He's recreating some of those moves. It's so inspiring. So
love him.
It's a good way to end the week.
He's the best.
Yes.
Well, that is all for this edition of The Culture Show. Tune in on Monday for the queens of the hit musical Six in town by way of Broadway and Boston, plus the editor of the Merriam-Webster Dictionary on the word of the year and other linguistic trends. Thanks today to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Corshio. Thanks to City Table, the Lennox Hotel, and the Newsfeed Cafe. Thank you to everyone who came down to the library to see us today. We always love having you here. I'm Jared Bowen. Have an arts-filled weekend.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library!
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH